This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast.
Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, send it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. You can also follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. Become one of our friends over on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. Well, we're embarking on a new series today, but with some of the same stars we heard in the last series. I'll get into that in a second. Before we do get started, I do want to remind you, as you make plans for perhaps a thriftier new year, remember the entertainment book. The entertainment book is full of great discounts in your own city on dining, dry cleaning, groceries, and much more. You can check out the coupons in your local entertainment book by going to entertainment.greatdetectives.net. Well, the Abbotts is a bit of a different series, and a bit more obscure than I think The Thin Man or Mr. and Mrs. North. The Thin Man continues in popularity through its popular film series, and it also had a TV series in the 1950s. The Abbotts were a series of books written by Francis Crane, and there were no Abbotts movies, but there was an the Abbott Mysteries radio series that aired from 1945 to 47. No episodes of that series survive. However, NBC decided to revive the Abbotts. It was the fall of 1954. Radio was officially in decline. And this was one of the great comeback ideas that NBC had. Claudia Morgan had been off the radio in the role of a detective wife since 1950. So they decided to try and rekindle the old formula. The series initially starred Don Briggs as Pat Abbott, with Claudia Morgan as Jean, but by episode 17 of the series, which you're about to hear from January 23rd, 1955, very late in the golden age of radio indeed, I'd put it as Silver Age actually, Les Damon had taken over. Damon, of course, having played Nick Charles. And 13 of the 18 Adventures of the Abbotts episodes that we have feature Les Damon in the role of Pat Abbott. The episodes that we have are not actually from the 1954-55 series run over NBC. They're all Armed Forces Radio Service presentations of the same episodes that were broadcast over the Armed Forces Radio and Television in 1957. However, for show notes, for simplicity, we'll use the dates the shows first appeared. Each episode of the Abbotts followed kind of the tradition of the Francis Crane novels, in which a color was in the title. This was Francis Crane's equivalent of the famous Mary Higgins Clark A is for, B is for murder mystery titles. Here now is the Royal Purple Scooter.
After all, what would you do if your husband started to mix business with pleasure, especially if business was a horrible corpse and pleasure was an exquisite woman?
the National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as Jean and Pete Abbott, the nationally popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. Pat and Jean invite you to join them each week at this time on NBC for another recorded adventure in romance and crime. Tonight's puzzle and murder, the Royal Purple Scooter. And here is Jean Abbott.
Well, I just called for Pat at his office. It was dinner time. My husband was ready to forget being a private detective and make a beeline for the nearest lobster a la Newburgh.
Come on, Jean. We'll go down to the skipper's, relax, and I'll order myself
Oh, is that a customer? So late.
I'm not expecting one. Come in. Yeah?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes?
My name is King. I'm from California Fidelity. Have you got a minute?
Yes, Mr. King. Surely, sit down. This is my wife.
How do you do?
How do you do, Mr. King?
What's on your mind, Mr. King?
Well, Mr. Abbott, my company sells accident insurance, and we think that we have a job for you.
What's the problem?
You mind if I deliver a short lecture on the insurance business?
Not at all. Go ahead.
The American public is really remarkable, Abbott. Now, our company spends $1 million a year telling people to use a little common sense. But they commit suicide anyway. They spend $1,000 for a painting, but they won't spend 50 cents to fix a rug on the stairway. Then their best friend steps on it, falls, and knocks his brains out. They'll take 6 hours to hang that same painting on the wall, but they won't take 60 seconds to move a bottle of iodine out of reach of the baby. Now, I hope I'm not shocking you, Mrs. Abbott.
Oh, no, please go ahead, Mr. King.
Now, we've done everything under the sun to try to educate the public. But they go right on, sticking their fingers in the light sockets, standing under trees during storms, and stepping on the soap in the bathtub. You know, when I get the casualty tables, I often think that maybe Freud was right about the death wish. Maybe we like dying. You'd think anyone but a congenital imbecile wouldn't light a match to look inside a gas tank. But a man in Sacramento tried it just yesterday. I just saw him at the morgue. Now we've got a new problem, and that's why I'm here.
Well, what's the problem?
Too many dangerous old cars on the road.
Oh, I see.
The American public loves this method of doing away with itself. Everybody and his brother has grabbed hold of anything on wheels that will move, and they're out on the road doing 90 in cars that belong in the junkyard. Cars with steering rods that snap, worn shoes that blow, brake linings that won't hold.
That's costing your company quite a few dollars, I imagine, huh?
It's costing California Fidelity thousands of dollars every day, Mr. Abbott. Oh, we're geared to certain emergencies, but we can't see daylight on this one. So, our only hope is to make a test case. There was a chap killed in an auto crash on Locust Avenue last night. Here's the card on him. His name is MacDonald. Rick MacDonald.
Oh, yes. I think I read about that in the paper.
Yes. MacDonald was coming down a hill near Locust Avenue. It's a bad one. Terrific grade, soft shoulders. 8 fatalities in the last 6 months. The city council has been too busy to fix it. They could have banked the curve, but they preferred to spend the money painting gold letters on City Hall. MacDonald went right off the road and over a rocky cliff.
He was alone in the car, wasn't he?
Yes. He wasn't speeding, though. The meter was smashed at 32 miles an hour.
Did you find anything that showed why he spilled over?
No. We had a top-flight mechanic take the wreck apart. Couldn't tell a thing. Car was too banged up.
What do you know about the man who died?
MacDonald? Well, he was 42, owned a chain of drugstores, married. He seems to have kept out of trouble. He was what we'd call a good risk. Now, he'd bought the car just a few days ago. Now then, if we could show that the car was a death trap when he plunked down his $1,750 for it, if we could show criminal negligence by the dealer who sold it...
Then you'd have a case.
Exactly. Maybe then we could set off some legal fireworks and get out of paying these dozens of fat claims like MacDonald's. His alone is $100,000.
$100,000?
Yes.
Who sold him the car?
A chap named Tenike. Harry Tenike. He has a fancy lot over on 7th Street. Mr. Abbott, if you'd investigate for us, California Fidelity would be glad to pay any reasonable fee.
All right, Mr. King. Now, what do you know about the dealer, Tenike?
Not much. He's been selling used cars for a long time. Grabs jalopies cheap on the East Coast and palms them off in Dallas or here in San Francisco. He's about, 36. Single. No prison record, no legal trouble at all.
Okay, Mr. King, I'll take it from here.
It would be worth quite a lot to us, Mr. Abbott, if you could prove the accident wasn't necessary.
Well, it shouldn't be too hard to prove that some of the cars they're selling these days aren't exactly dreamboats.
Some. Probably most of them.
Insurance companies have such fine, trusting natures.
Well, we're not dealing with the Vassar Daisy chain, Mrs. Abbott. the insurance company very often involves what Mark Twain called downright human cussedness. It's not a business for people with queasy stomachs or elaborate moral standards.
Have you anything else to tell me, Mr. King?
No, I think that's about it.
I guess you forgot one little item. I read it in the paper this morning.
Oh, really? What was that?
When they found that wrecked car and McDonald's body, they found a scooter on the back seat, a purple scooter.
Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten about that.
Well, the newspaper said that the McDonald's didn't have any children, so, why was there a scooter in the dead man's automobile?
Oh, I see, Pat. You mean MacDonald was murdered. After Mr. King left, Pat and I headed for Harry Tenike's used car lot. It was a gaudy place with huge signs, glaring spotlights, and a public address system.
Yes, sir, folks. Harry Tenike is crazy. Crazy. He's giving his money away. He wants you to drive right up here and sell your car, and Uncle Harry doesn't care what he pays for it, not Uncle Harry.
Sounds like the old Army game, doesn't it, Pat?
I think the odds in the Army game are better.
Oh, that must be Mr. Tenike over there. The salesman said he's a big, fat fellow with red hair.
All right, now remember, Gene, I'm not a detective. I'm a customer.
Uh-huh.
We want to buy one of these terrific bargains from Tenike.
Okay.
Mr. Tenike.
Yes.
I'm interested in that 51 there, the gray coupe. What do you want for it?
Why, that's practically a brand new car, my boy. Bought that just this morning from a lieutenant in the Navy. You know how those Japs are. They take wonderful care of their cars.
How much is it?
Well, it's only got 16,000 miles on it. The tires are perfect. It's got a radio and a heater.
I said, how much is it?
Well, I'm not rightly sure. You see, I've already offered it to a dealer, so I may not be able to sell it at all. I don't remember what price he bid me for it. What do you think it's worth, my boy?
You try to remember the price, huh?
I think it was, $1,600. Is that about what you expect to pay for a car?
Not for a car that's been in an accident, no, the way that one has.
Now, where'd you get that idea, my boy?
The fenders have been rewelded. The hood's been worked on. That car isn't worth $1,600
Well, maybe it does need a little fixing, but I'll have my mechanic go over it for you.
Is that the kind of a phony deal you made with Rick McDonald? Did you sell him one of these hot cars, one of these suicide buses?
Well, where'd you get that idea?
A little birdie told me.
Very funny.
Did you know McDonald at all? Or was he just another sucker?
Look, Bud, when I want quiz programs, I turn on the radio. Who are you, anyway?
My name is Abbott. Pat Abbott.
And I'm Mrs. Abbott.
Who sent you here? You what they call a private investigator?
Oh, they call me a lot of other things, too.
Look here, Abbott. I did know Rick McDonald. Matter of fact, he happened to be a very good friend of mine. And I wouldn't chisel Rick out of a dime. The car I sold him was perfect.
Yes, but there isn't any way of proving that now, is there?
Rick knew cars, Abbott. He'd driven cars for 20 years. I couldn't have gypped him even if I wanted to. And besides, we were practically buddies.
So he'd trust you, eh, Tenike? He'd take your word, blind, that the car was okay.
Get out of here. I'd have knocked your lousy head off for hitting that I double-crossed Rick. I had nothing to do with the way he got killed. He was on a crummy hill. 8 other guys went off the same road this year. That ain't my fault. And no Penny Ann or Sherlock Holmes.
You say you knew McDonald very well?
Sure I did. I've known the McDonalds for years.
You must have known Mrs. McDonald, too.
Dottie? Sure. So what?
So nothing.
Now, look here. Dottie's a good girl. You've been hearing that stuff about how she runs around? Now, they say that just because she's so pretty. That's all. Now, go on. Beat it, Abbott. You get out of here and forget my address. Ah, dear, you're coming around here with dirty cracks about Rick and Dottie. What are you trying to do? Show the boys you're smart? Show them that they hired a genius? What some people won't do to make a buck.
All right, easy, Tenike, easy.
You get out of here. You get out and make it fast before I take this wrench.
All right, I'm going, Tenike. Nice to meet you. Yeah, you're just the way they describe you in the ads. Jolly Harry Tenike, everybody's friend.
As soon as we left the used car lot, Pat suddenly reversed his usual policy. Instead of ordering me to go home and stop bothering him while he was on a case, he actually sent me out snooping. He actually asked me to help him. He told me to look up Tim, our old friend who was an expert mechanic. He told me to check on people who'd bought cars from Tenike. I went dancing away, very happy that Pat had realized at last that I was a very valuable assistant.
This is Pat Abbott. Ordinarily, I don't barge in on Jean's storytelling, but, just between you and me, I got rid of Jean purposely. I'd given her a lot of useless things to do so that I could go to see Mrs. McDonald alone. Oh, all in the line of duty, of course. From what I'd heard about Dottie, I knew I'd be better off if there weren't any other women around, and she thought I was single. See, I wanted Mrs. McDonald to play every card she had without inhibitions. Mrs. McDonald's one of the most colossal little numbers I'd seen outside the pages of Esquire. Sitting in her apartment, I thought that what Tenight called being a penny anti-Sherlock Holmes sometimes had its rewards.
Another Manhattan, Mr. Abbott?
Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. You're quite a mixer.
Call me Dottie. You've been much too formal ever since you got here.
Well, I'm sorry it's necessary for me to talk about your husband's death.
Oh, that's all right. I guess I'm not the weepy type anyway. Oh, I'll miss Rick, and that's that. I'll miss him, well, for a while anyway.
Sounds like you two...
Oh, we got along as well as the usual married couple. Oh, you know how it is. Mm-hmm. Well, when you get married, you'll find there are lots of jokers in the deck. But, you didn't come here to talk about our marriage, did you?
No. I came to ask you about Harry Tenight. You know him very well? The used car tycoon?
Harry? Oh, sure. Harry and Rick both wanted to marry me. That was back in 41. Well, then we got into the war, and Harry was drafted. So I married Rick. Later, Rick got into the drugstore business and made a lot of money. It kind of burned Harry up. You know, first he lost me, and then Rick made a fortune while Harry was on the Anzio beachhead.
Was Tenight around last night, before your husband went out driving?
No, we hadn't seen Harry for a couple of weeks. Why? What are you trying to do? Hey, what are you getting at?
I'm just trying to get at the details.
Tell me something, Dick Tracy.
Sure, what?
Do you by any chance think I killed Rick?
Could be.
Oh, if you do, you're not as smart as you look. Why should I kill him? For the 100,000? I got all the money I want. Here, look at this necklace. You like it?
Yes, very pretty.
Genuine mother of pearl. Rick got it for me. Cost him $5,000. Come closer. Take a good look at it.
Yeah, that's swell.
You like my dress, too? Rick bought it. He thought it showed me off nicely. What do you think?
Certainly does.
Like my perfume? It's another present.
From Rick?
From a friend. Oh, I have lots of friends. Oh, this perfume's $65 an ounce. Now do you think I had to kill Rick to make 100,000?
I don't know, yet.
It's wonderful perfume, isn't it? Look, Pat, I can't go out while they're burying Rick. It wouldn't look nice. You know, there's a family downstairs, and, well, they'd be shocked. But, I need a little company, you know, somebody to hang around here with me, and I thought, well, maybe you and... Now, who could that be?
I think it's my wife.
Your what?
Oh, Mrs. McDonald? I'm Mrs. Abbott.
How do you do? Come in, won't you? I was just talking to your husband.
Hello, Jean. How'd you know I was here?
We'll talk about that later, Pat. Coming, darling?
Oh, yes, I was just going. Mrs. McDonald and I were discussing the legal aspects of the case.
Did you learn anything interesting, Pat?
Oh, yes. Mrs. McDonald has been very informative.
I'm sure she has. So nice to have met you, Mrs. McDonald.
Well, I'm happy to have seen you, Mrs. Abbott. Goodbye.
Toodaloo.
Goodbye. Pat Abbott.
Now, Jean, listen to me. I was being very tricky with that woman.
Yes, I can see you were.
I purposely was giving her enough rope, you see? Letting her go on and talk. I acted very innocent. I was just looking for clues, and... how'd you know I was there?
Right after I left you, it suddenly occurred to me. I asked myself why you were so anxious to send me off on errands. Then I remembered how the insurance man, Mr. King, described Mrs. McDonald. That was quite a legal discussion, Pat. With Manhattans all over the place, the room smelling like a perfume store. Does Mrs. McDonald hold all her legal conferences in slinky lounging pajamas?
Well, I don't know. All I want to say...
It must have been a very serious discussion. Oh, I can just see you, dear, looking at Mrs. McDonald's backless pajamas and saying, of course, what's most important is the case of Rittenhouse versus Humperdinck, where a writ of notel...
Well, now, look, Jean, if you don't trust me...
I trust you, Pat. Do you know something, little boy?
Yes, ma'am.
Santa Claus up at the North Pole watches all the little boys year-round. So he knows who deserves to get presents.
Uh-huh.
He keeps a little book on you, Pat Abbott. And I'd hate to see what he just wrote about you and Mrs. McDonald.
You would, huh?
You're not getting anything from Santa next Christmas, Pat Abbott. Back at Pat's office after we finished discussing Mrs. McDonald, we discussed the case, seriously. I asked Pat what the next step was, and he stood up and announced very solemnly...
In regard to the mysterious death of Rick McDonald...
Yes?
I'm going to take the final step necessary to solve the case. I'm going to,
Yes?
I'm going to...
Yes? Yes?
I am going to play beanbag.
Pat wasn't fooling either. Without any explanation, he left me flat in his office and went running over to the Locust Street section where, and he began to play beanbag with all the neighborhood youngsters. I decided that Pat was either disgusted with the case or temporarily insane. I decided this was a perfect opportunity for me to solve the mystery on my own. So I went back to Harry Tenike and his used car lot.
I told your husband to stay away from here, Mrs. Abbott. Now I'm telling you. Now get out and stay out.
Then I tried Mrs. McDonald.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Abbott, but there isn't anything more I can tell you. Well, I think your husband covered everything very nicely when he was here.
3 days went by, and all this time Pat was still in his second childhood phase, playing one-a-cat, cops and robbers, and handball with the youngsters. He was on a sandlot watching a ball game when...
Hey, some game, eh, Billy?
Oh, boy, it sure is, Mr. Abbott.
Now remember, if we win this one, I'm going to buy you a brand new first baseman's mitt.
Oh, golly. Would you? Oh, boy.
You got many toys, Billy?
Oh, sure. I got millions of them.
Uh-huh. Listen, Billy. You want to tell me a secret?
Uh-huh. What?
Well, it's about something that happened last week. Now, you can tell me the answer. You can trust me, you know.
Sure. What is it?
No, I won't tell a soul. But I want you to tell me the truth.
Go ahead. Shoot.
Billy, did you lose a scooter?
That night, the minute Pat came home, he picked up the telephone and put in a call for Mr. King of California Fidelity.
Well, I hope King is home, Jean.
You must have found out something very important to be calling him at home, Pat.
Yes, I did.
Hello?
Mr. King.
Yes?
This is Pat Abbott.
Oh, hello there, Abbott. Well, you got something for us?
Yes, I think I've got your answer. And the scooter did have something to do with it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I'll come right over.
All right.
Tell you what, my car's downstairs. I'll drive over and pick you up, then we can go to my office. I'll open it up, and I'll round up one of our lawyers, and then we'll get moving. You can fill out affidavits.
Yeah, fine.
I'll be over in, I should be there in 10 minutes. Bye-bye.
I'll be waiting. Bye.
Well, Pat, what'd you find out? Well, you're not going to make me wait for Mr. King, are you?
I found out.
Yes?
I found out that beanbag is a much more difficult game than you think.
We waited quite a while for Mr. King, almost 30 minutes. Pat got impatient and went to the corner stationery store for the evening papers. Finally, Mr. King appeared. We got into his car and drove off for the insurance office.
All right, Abbott. What's the story?
Well, Mr. King, in the first place, just as you suspected, McDonald didn't have an accident.
Really? Go on, Abbott.
I spoke to Harry Tenike and to Mrs. McDonald, but the most fascinating item in the whole setup, as far as I was concerned, was a scooter found in the back of McDonald's automobile.
Yes, you said over the phone that you had something on that.
Yeah, well, I made it my business to hang around with the kids who lived near the McDonald's. I sort of built up a reservoir of goodwill with the gang of them.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know if one of them had lost a scooter, and sure enough, one of them had. His name was Billy Livingston. Great kid, Billy. Kind of devilish, too. You see, the night McDonald died, Billy had stolen into the back of McDonald's auto with a scooter. He was hiding back there, trying to sneak a free ride. Well, McDonald parked in front of a stationery store and had gone inside to buy a paper or something. And while Billy crouched on the floor in the back, someone came up. He lifted the hood of McDonald's car and jimmied the works. Probably loosened the steering rod. Well, Billy got scared and ran away, leaving his scooter on the back seat. That's why it was found in the wreckage. Well, after the news went around town, Billy was too frightened to announce that it was his scooter.
Well, could Billy see well enough from the back seat that night to recognize who jimmied the car?
Mm-hmm. He could, Gene.
You mean the kid knows who committed the murder? He can identify them?
He can.
Well, who was it? Who killed McDonald?
You did, Mr. King.
Pat, you said...
Yes, I said Mr. King did, Gene.
I made a mistake, Abbott. I purposely hired you, figuring that it would be a nice cover-up for me. The double bluff, you know? The guy who pulled the gag, insisting that there be an investigation. Seems I underestimated you. I thought you'd go up a blind alley or pin it on Harry Tenike.
Pat, we've got...
You don't have to do anything, Mrs. Abbott. I carry a .38. I've carried it ever since I killed Rick. Comes in handy now. I had to stop my car.
You know, King, the only thing that bothered me is why. Why did you do it?
Because of Dottie McDonald. I had a yen for Dottie. One of those bad ones. Makes you sick inside and pretty desperate. I sweated it out for a while, then she started to pay some attention to me. I went out with her a few times. Got to where I figured that if it weren't for Rick, I could be the number one boy. Especially since Dottie couldn't stand her husband. Being second in the league is no good. You get so you want to be first so much you don't care about anything else. Then Rick called. Wanted insurance on the car. I knew he'd bought a used one, probably a punk one. Harry Tenike hated Rick.
So, Harry Tenike was the perfect suspect, huh?
Sure. And there was another thing. The hill near Locust Avenue where Rick lived. It's a dangerous incline. And automobile accidents make almost perfect murders. So I had all the cards.
Yeah.
Now, if you'll stay right where you are. In the front seat, there's some rope, Mr. Abbott, on the floor beside you. Will you pick it up, please, and hand it to me? And, I think you're an intelligent man. I think you won't try anything. I think you know that if you do, I'll blow your wife's head off. Here's the rope. Now, don't move, either of you. I can wrap a rope around you with my left hand, I think. So, and tie it down to the door handle. So, gotta pull it tight. There we are.
What are you going to do?
Mrs. Abbott, the hill where Rick went over is just ahead of us. I'm going to start the car and then jump out. Simple, isn't it?
No, you can't do that. If we're found in your car without...
Did you ever hear of accident faking, Mrs. Abbott? That's another side to this fascinating business that I'm in. I had a long talk with one of the best accident fakers in the country last year. He taught me quite a few things. It'd be very easy for me to scratch my hands and legs and be found terribly shocked with the dead bodies of Mr. and Mrs. Abbott. We had an awful accident. You were killed. I was luckier.
Pat, he can't.
Easy, darling. Now, I'll start the car. Now, if you don't mind, I'll be leaving.
Pat, he's gone. You've got to stop this car.
Tight this rope. Too tight.
I can't move my arms either. There's the hill, Pat. Right ahead of us. Stop the car. Stop the car. Oh, Pat, you've got to stop the car. There's the hill right ahead of us.
Come out, Billy.
Billy?
Okay, Mr. Abbott.
Our friend Billy Livingston is with us, Gene. He's hiding in the back. You know what I taught you to do, Billy?
Sure. I remember. I'll do it. I've just got to climb over this seat.
Hurry, Billy, hurry. There's a police car back there.
They must have noticed this car is out of control. Now, go on, Billy. Do what I told you. Don't get excited.
Now I take hold of the steering wheel. Right, Mr. Abbott?
That's it, boy. Take it. Hold on to it. Steady. Steady.
Stop the car! Here's the hill, Pat. Here it comes.
You know which pedal's the brake, Billy. I showed you that.
Yes, I know. Now I step on the brake.
Keep the wheel steady and straight.
I can't reach the brake. My foot's too short.
Try, Billy. Go on, boy. Try. Reach, Billy. Reach. You've got to step on that brake.
Oh, it's so hard to reach it.
You're touching it, Billy. That's it. Now step on it.
The hill! The hill! Little Billy Livingston jammed his foot down on the brake just as we reached the soft shoulder on the curve. Just as we would have gone over. The police car behind us pulled up, and in less than 3 minutes, Pat led them to Mr. King, who was walking nonchalantly down the side of the road toward the bottom of the hill, where he thought we would be found dead. Later, that evening at home. Pat, how did you happen to teach Billy how to stop the car? And how is it that he was hiding in the back anyway?
Well, do you remember when I got impatient, waiting for King to show up?
Uh-huh.
I strolled down to the stationery store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I picked up Billy. I thought King might try something like that once he knew I had him. Billy seemed to be quite a little expert at hiding in back of cars by now, so I took him along as an ally.
Very neat. Now, about, Dottie.
Oh, yes, Dottie. Wasn't she gorgeous? Sort of a care package from Errol Flynn. She keeps going where Betty Grable leaves off.
Wait a minute. Wait. What has she got that I haven't got?
Now, you come on out to the terrace in the moonlight, darling, and I'll take inventory.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Les Damon as those nationally known popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. We wish to thank Ann Corio for portraying the role of Dot McDonald in tonight's story. Our cast tonight included Mandel Kramer and David Pfeffer. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. Next week, same time, same station, another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts. This is Roger Tuttle speaking.
This is the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, I certainly hope that Pat Abbott has made out his will. He really does seem to stretch the patience of his wife. Plus, I was a little unclear about the ethics of using a 12-year-old boy as an ally, thus putting his life at risk. But anyway, it was actually a pretty interesting mystery. Mandel Kramer, of course, who appeared in the role of the insurance man, somewhat ironic role because Mandel Kramer is most famous for being the last Johnny Dollar. So an evil insurance investigator. And I did like that he did at least obtain permission to give a lecture before giving a lecture. And these type of public safety warnings were very common in radio and television of the era. In fact, a great episode of the TV show Racket Squad illustrated the danger of cars that were dogs. So an interesting first entry for the Abbotts. We'll be back with more tomorrow. Before we do get started, I want to remind you about Audible. Audible is a great service that allows you to get one audiobook a month, plus a discount on other audio series. What that means is you can get an audiobook, such as a Nero Wolfe book, and you can also get a Doctor Who play, or some of the Poirot radio episodes from BBC Radio 4 at a discount. You can try Audible out free for 14 days. Go to audiblepodcast.com/oldtimeradio to start your free trial. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of Nero Wolfe, The Case of the Friendly Rabbit.
Stay tuned for Nero Wolfe, who follows transcribed in 30 seconds. Later tonight, over most of these NBC stations, Duffy's Tavern comes your way, and on the menu at Duffy's tonight, there's a blue plate special of grilled English language, served up by the delightfully ungrammatical Archie, plus laughs garnished with chuckles, brought to you by Archie's remarkable crew. There's no cover charge at Duffy's Tavern. Just keep your dial tuned to NBC. And this Sunday means another broadcast of The Big Show. Your guests include Fred Allen, Douglas Fairbanks, Danny Thomas, and many, many more. Tallulah, of course, is your hostess on The Big Show. Ladies and gentlemen, that phone bell means adventure. Hello?
Hello?
The young man answering the phone is Archie Goodwin. The mountain of a man engaged in deep thought in the oversized armchair is Nero Wolfe.
Mr. Wolfe, we've got a case. I'm not sure whether somebody's going to kill a rabbit or a rabbit is going to kill somebody, but either way, it's going to be murder. Please, Mr. Wolfe, even orchids have to eat.
Phooey.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wolfe will take the case. As a matter of fact, he's working on it right now.
Money, work, bah.
Greatest detective in the world. Only trouble is, he is.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Archie is right. Nero Wolfe is the greatest detective in the world, and the fattest, and the least energetic. Nero Wolfe, created by Rex Stout, and brought to you over this NBC network in a new series of adventures by Mr. Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight, it's the case Nero Wolfe likes to remember as the case of the friendly rabbit. He sometimes prefers his proverb scramble. It began in lots of places. Let's take a look at a few of them. In particular, the richly appointed library of a man named Veek.
Mr. Veek, what's happening?
Relax, Haynes. Your blood pressure.
I thought it was a gag, but you really are shutting the club down.
I'm shutting it down.
Why? I got the joint rolling. The suckers are pouring in.
And next week, the governor's committee.
Huh?
It's moving out of Baylor County. Our joint enterprise is in Baylor County. I think the club needs a rest. Crime committees so rarely admire gambling.
Oh, that's different.
So it is. The club needs a rest. You need a vacation. Florida, perhaps?
I don't like Florida.
Pick any place you like, just so long as you get out of reach of a subpoena.
The heat's on, huh, boss?
You've just coined a phrase that may very well catch on. Get out and stay out of the state until I send for you.
Okay, Mr. Veek. Sure, Mr. Veek.
Marshal?
Yeah?
That about covers us in Baylor, am I right?
You're right.
The dear governor's dear committee will be sorely disappointed. However, I doubt it'll give up quite so soon.
I wouldn't think so.
Therefore, have the truck driver deliver another shipment of carrots to the rabbit farm. Eh, Marshal?
Okay, boss.
Come in, Williams.
Good afternoon, Governor.
Good afternoon. Williams, I'm disturbed.
The crime committee, sir?
It was doing well, very well. And then...
I know, sir.
There's a leak. Someone is passing on confidential information. Who?
That's the problem. Who? Started 3 weeks ago.
A three-man committee, Wilson, McCarthy, Tolliver. One of them, Williams?
I'd stake my life, sir, no.
Then who?
You've forgotten Collier, committee secretary.
You have reason to suspect him?
No, nothing that means anything. Except...
You do suspect him?
Well, he's been watched, telephone calls checked, mail. I have no reason to suspect him. Except that one thing bothers me.
What's that?
He has a small farm in Greendale County. He rarely went near the place in all the time he's been up here at the Capitol. But that suddenly changed.
3 weeks ago?
Yes, sir. He's been staying at the farm for 3 weeks.
Is there anything unusual about that farm?
Nothing unusual. Except Jimmy Collier has gone in for raising rabbits.
Jimmy,
Who is... Oh, hello, Claire.
you've been hiding from me.
I've been out here with the rabbits.
Jimmy, what's wrong?
With what?
You.
There's nothing.
You're lying. We grew up together, remember? We lived next to each other, Jimmy. We were going to be married.
Hey, wait a minute. We still are, last I heard.
You haven't heard recently enough.
What does that mean?
It means we're not getting married.
But, Claire,
You've been avoiding me, and you've been getting money, lots of money from someplace. And in a shady way, I feel.
All right, you know. So what?
I've been concerned about your sudden devotion to these rabbits and the kind of men you've been seeing.
What do you mean?
Like the one up at the house now, waiting for you.
Oh, there's somebody waiting?
That's why I came down here after you.
I'd better get up there.
He's a crook, Jimmy.
Look, All right. I sort of got myself in a mess. I needed money, but it's over, Claire. No more.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure.
I wish I could believe you. For your own sake. But I feel I can't. Not anymore.
Archie.
Yes, Mr. Wolfe.
Either stop breathing so heavily or...
Take the evening off?
Stop breathing.
Old Dr. Tidmouse wouldn't approve of that.
Who in blue and assorted blazes is old Dr. Tidmouse?
My family doctor.
Mavis keeps your puny mind, but you don't have a family. Answer the phone.
Oh, but it might be a case. It might be very important. It might mean work, Mr. Wolfe.
Archie.
W-O-R-K. You've got millions in the bank. Why worry?
Confound you. Do you want me to answer that phone myself?
Now you've got me. No, Mr. Wolfe. Couldn't let you knock yourself out lifting a telephone receiver. Nero Wolfe's office. Archie Goodwin speaking. What? Wait, Mr. Wolfe is to go up to Greendale at... Oh, now, look, friend. Mr. Wolfe does not go anywhere, and that includes Greendale. He wouldn't stir out of the house for anybody short of the... What? I see. Yes, sir, in an hour. Goodbye. Mr. Wolfe, brace yourself. You've got an appointment with a Mr. Williams at the Starlight Hotel in Greendale for 1 hour from now.
You're insane.
No, I'll admit I've been tempted.
Sure. Were it not for the fact that often the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with a pale cast of thought...
Quoting Hamlet will get you no place.
I would fire you.
And then who would drive you to the Starlight Hotel in Greendale?
I'm not going to Greendale.
Nevertheless, in an hour you will be there.
And who, may I inquire, Cecil?
The governor of the state.
Is that all, Mr. Williams?
That, Mr. Wolfe, is all anyone knows about the situation. Except the guilty man, of course.
An admirably clear summary, Mr. Williams.
Obviously, our meeting here at the hotel was necessary. I couldn't be seen entering your house, nor would it have been advisable for you to visit the governor.
I can appreciate that. You're quite sure I need pay no attention to anyone on the committee except James Collier?
Quite sure.
Police surveillance of Collier is deemed unwise. He has suddenly taken interest in rabbits, but although keeping them may perhaps be considered suspicious, it is hardly in itself of value. You have no other evidence against Collier?
I know we're clutching at straws, Mr. Wolfe. But there is a leak and work is being nullified. Something must be done. Hence the governor's call for you.
Very well, sir. I shall attempt to be more than a man clutching at a straw. I said attempt. Archie, unpack. We shall stay at Greendale near Collier and his rabbits.
Mr. Wolfe? Mr. Wolfe? Oh, naturally, I know that shutting your eyes and pushing your lips in and out indicates you're thinking feverishly, but there's nothing for you to think about.
Three.
Oh, I accept your correction. What are you thinking about?
Hotel beds. They're notoriously flimsy.
Oh, you gave up on the case so soon.
Fiddlesticks. I already know exactly what role the rabbits play in our problem. Therefore...
We're going to drive out to Collier's farm?
You are.
While you test the hotel beds. Fine.
It'll be necessary for you to spend the night at Collier's place. You'll drive out there and pretend you've lost a cylinder or something.
Oh, a lost cylinder. Oh, fine.
Confound you, Archie. You can invent something plausible as a pretext, and if you are properly charming, Mr. Collier will, I hope, invite you to stay the night.
And during the night I sleep, happily breathing the fresh country air.
Trust not.
Okay, Mr. Wolfe, I accept the assignment. I will learn all I can from Mr. Collier's rabbits. Incidentally, remember the play Harvey?
I do? Why?
Harvey was an invisible rabbit, a figment of a man's imagination. I hope this rabbit venture is more tangible, Mr. Wolfe.
It is, Mr. Goodwin. Will you desist and depart?
Okay. Oh, if anyone calls, just say I've gone out to Greendale to cross-examine a rabbit.
Archie, I think you're going to be quite surprised. Yes.
Running out of gas, and me such a big boy. Hello.
Hello?
That tree a friend of yours?
The tree?
Yeah, the one you're clutching.
Oh, I was leaning against it.
It's an idea, but not a good one. Trees are notoriously skittish. The instant you really need one, they're out sowing wild oaks or something.
You sound as if you know a lot about trees.
Oh, I do. I was brought up in one. Look, now, if you really have to lean, I can recommend...
No, thanks.
Huh? I tried. Nice moonlight we're having. My name is Goodwin, and blondes call me Archie.
I'm not blonde.
Brunettes call me Archie, too.
And what do redheads call you?
Oh, we'll just skip that, huh? And your name is...
Claire.
Claire. I approve. Now, you may not believe this, but I have just run out of gas. You think I might wangle some up at your house?
My house? You mean Jimmy's house?
All right, I mean Jimmy's house.
Well, I don't know. He might have some.
Now, why don't we go up to the house and ask him?
Well, all right.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy who?
Collier.
Uh-huh. I like to be formal when I'm borrowing gas. Would you mind waving your left hand in front of my nose?
Waving, Mike?
Yes, just try it. Don't worry. I won't bite it.
All right. I did.
And very gracefully, too. No ring on the third finger. You're not Mrs. Collier.
There isn't any Mrs. Collier.
Are you applying for the position?
Mr. Goodwin,
Now, remember what I confided in you about brunettes.
All right. Archie, you're a little rapid.
Maybe. But I always remember what old Dr. Titmouse said.
What did he say?
Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. Old time is still a-flying.
Robert Herrick wrote that.
He did? Dr. Titmouse is a liar. How much farther is this house?
Well, it's just beyond those trees.
What?
There was something ran across the path. It brushed my legs. It frightened me so.
Must have been a rabbit.
I guess it was. Oh, I'm sorry. That was silly of me.
Oh. Don't worry about it. Also, you will have noticed how much more satisfactory I am than a tree. We're clutching at it, moments of stress, I mean.
Archie.
Mm-hmm. But you better let go now.
And
we'll get on to the house. See, I don't need a haircut, and you're not the right type for Delilah anyway.
You mean something by that. Something nasty.
Well, that depends. What I meant is you've already signaled whoever you're supposed to signal. Nothing frightened you back there.
Why?
That scream had a lot of carrying power. Oh, that's the house, huh? Looks peaceful enough.
Archie,
Who were you supposed to warn if anyone came up the path to the house?
For no one. Something did frighten me.
Honey, I've been lied to by experts, and you're not one. Oh. Think I ought to knock? No, we don't think I ought to knock. Dark inside, except for a handful of moonlight filtering in through the windows. Kind of early for Collier to turn in, isn't it?
I wouldn't know.
Let's go find out. Now, relax. Grandpa's making with the chimes. Time is... 10 o'clock. It's getting late. Come on. This would be the living room. Filled with early American furniture. The early Americans would be pleased. Nothing here. What's that door lead to?
I don't know.
Or won't tell? Smaller room. Dark as...
Come in. Put the beer on it. Oh, you're not the bellboy.
I'm sorry. I should have remembered to bring some beer.
Indeed, and you are?
I'm a fellow guest at this hotel, Mr. Wolfe. My name is Veek.
Veek, yes. A criminal of moderate intelligence and immoderate pretensions.
We won't quarrel, Mr. Wolfe. I've something to offer you. You and your boy Goodwin didn't drive up to Greendale for the exercise.
I dislike exercise. Shortens life.
James Collier lives nearby. The Governor's Committee on Crime is unhappy. There's been a leakage of information. It hasn't helped them in their work.
But it has helped you.
You wouldn't have left your house in New York on any ordinary job. A request from the governor, however. Shall we stop fencing?
I don't have to fence with you.
The committee's work doesn't particularly bother me. I've already made my arrangements for retiring from active business, shall I say. However, I don't want you messing around in the meantime.
Indeed.
In your effort to discover how the committee's information leaked out, you might also discover a number of things about me that I prefer to remain undiscovered.
No one has employed me to do anything about you, sir?
Not directly, but indirectly you might have to. I want to insure myself against any such possibility. I want to make a deal with you. I'm ready to supply you with the name of the man responsible for the leak and papers proving his guilt. I have them here.
In return for which you expect?
A quick conclusion to your activities and your return to New York, leaving my name out of your reports.
I'm neither a public official nor a philanthropist. I should do nothing about you unless it becomes necessary. You may remove your hand from your pocket. You wouldn't dare shoot me. Now then, the name of the man.
James Collier.
Proof of his guilt?
These. A series of reports on the committee's meetings in Collier's handwriting.
Thank you. Good night, sir.
Good night. And I hope for your sake that we do not meet again.
Phew. Archie, answer it. Oh. Hello?
Mr. Wolfe?
Yes, Archie.
I'm at the Collier place.
Since it takes only 10 minutes to get there, may I congratulate you on your speed?
I've been at the Collier place for nearly an hour.
Doing what?
Oh, meeting Claire for one thing, discussing rosebuds.
Your delay has been explained. Good night.
And for another, I was being around when someone got murdered.
Ah, you laid hands on the murderer?
No, the room was dark. By the time I got Claire untangled from me and started looking for somebody with a gun, he'd left.
I see. And the dead man, of course, is James Collier.
No, sorry.
Found it had to be. Who was he?
Total stranger.
Archie.
I'm not being difficult. There was no identification on him.
Strange. A description.
Early 30s, height maybe 5'10", weight around 175 pounds. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a very natty dresser. Suit custom tailored with a built-in shoulder holster. Don Juan shirts. Manicured but very dirty fingernails. And he... Uh-oh. Company.
You please?
Mm-hmm.
Very well, you tell them whatever you think proper, without mentioning the governor's committee, of course. You then bid them farewell and come to the hotel.
Can't I say goodbye to Claire, too?
You cannot. Confound you, Archie. Do you think I want to wait up all night?
Police were not happy about letting me go, but I threatened to tell you on them, so they gave up.
You have told me the entire story of what occurred at the Collier farm, Archie?
Mm-hmm. All details. If you like, I wouldn't mind repeating the parts about Claire.
Phooey.
You may call it phooey, I call it love. By the way, did you know that it was Robert Herrick who wrote that poem?
Confound you, be quiet.
Okay, push your lips around, but you've missed something.
I have?
Mm-hmm. The burning question of the day. Night, rather.
Which is?
Where is James Collier?
Ah.
Stop buying. The cops want him on suspicion of murder. The way it shapes up, he shot our unknown pal and then headed for the nearest border.
Nonsense.
Mean he didn't shoot our unknown pal?
I mean Collier's whereabouts are not a mystery.
You know where he is?
I know where he is.
I don't believe it. You couldn't know. You haven't been out of the hotel. You haven't had any calls.
Archie, I use my intelligence. If you had used yours instead of opening the girl...
I still wouldn't know where Collier is. Never mind. I'm impressed. What do I do now?
You get Mr. Veek on the phone.
Huh?
He's staying here at the hotel.
Oh, old home week.
Operator.
Mr. Veek, please.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Veek?
Who is this?
Mr. Wolfe wants to speak with you. Just a second. Here you are, sir.
Thank you. Mr. V, where were you at 10 o'clock?
Why, on my way to the hotel.
You checked in at...
10:15, then came directly to your room.
One other question. You have an employee, a man in his early 30s, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and well-dressed. Am I correct?
Yes, that is Marshall.
No, that was Marshall. Good night, sir.
Having done that, whatever it meant, we now go to sleep?
So we go to the Collier farm.
Okay, but why?
Because, Archie, the time has come to cross-examine the rabbits. Confound you, Archie. You're not driving a truck. Be careful.
Truck drivers are careful. Also, they're courteous.
Indeed.
Furthermore, they will always stop to help a motorist in time of trouble.
Archie, are you training to become a truck driver, or have you fallen in love with a truck driver's daughter?
Her name is Susie, her hair the color of wheat fields at high noon. Never mind turning purple. I'm about to change the subject. Boss, I have a theory.
Stick to truck drivers.
As follows. Our boy Collier, who'd been selling information to Veek, had a change of heart and decided to turn ethical. But Veek's man, Marshall, at Veek's orders, tried to apply pressure, so Collier shot him and headed for Canada.
And the girl's roll?
Just to brighten my life. Oh, you mean about her playing sentry? Well, she's in Veek's employ, too.
Phooey.
Don't like my theory.
It's charming. It merely happens to be wrong.
Merely happens to be... Why is it wrong?
Because, Archie, of a dead man's dirty fingernails, Marshall's fingernails.
Oh. Well, you made me bring you to the rabbit hutches. We have arrived. There are the rabbits. Go ahead, cross-examine them.
Good many hutches. A large pen for the rabbits to run about in. Notice that they're all cowering at the far end of the pen, ran as we entered.
That's because they don't like us, maybe, huh?
One of them, however, seems to be friendly. The one up here, and at the corner opposite us.
Oh, yeah, there is one here. He's not friendly, Mr. Wolfe.
Indeed?
He's dead. Somebody stove in his skull.
Interesting.
What's interesting about a dead rabbit?
He may be dead now, Archie, but he was friendly. Too friendly.
Claire, this is Mr. Wolfe. Mr. Wolfe, this is Claire. Claire, I'm Archie.
Chair, Archie.
A chair. Try this one. Be gentle with it. If you break it, all the early Americans will hate you.
It'll serve.
Steady.
Oh. Well, now then.
Mr. Wolfe, I'm dreadfully tired. The police have...
Are idiots.
What?
For example, do they know that you were posted as sentry outside this house in order to warn James Collier of any intrusion?
Well, they don't... I wasn't.
Do they know that James Collier and the dead man Marshall were quarreling?
No.
Do they know that James Collier had armed himself in preparation for this meeting with the gunman?
That isn't true.
It is true.
I don't have to say anything.
You've already said more than enough with your actions, my dear.
What do you mean?
According to Archie's report, and Archie is always meticulously accurate, when you and he opened the door of the room in which the murder took place, you screamed at the shots.
Well, of course. Any girl would scream with...
Then you clung to Archie with sufficient force and for sufficient length of time to prevent him from chasing the murderer. Why? Because you had seen and recognized the murderer as the man you loved.
It was too dark to see anything.
True. Therefore, you didn't have to see the man. You thought you already knew who the killer had to be.
That's a lie.
You're shielding James Collier, aren't you?
I'll never admit any of it. Never.
May not be necessary. Archie.
Yes, Mr. Wolfe?
Get hold of that policeman outside and remember what happened to one particular rabbit. Well, look around for freshly dug earth. Midnight.
What are we waiting for?
A return?
Archie's?
No, it'll take him longer.
Well, then whose?
Mr. Veek's, of course, complete with revolver. Come in, Mr. Veek.
It couldn't have been easier. No one outside, only the two of you here. I warned you, Wolfe.
Fiddlesticks. You merely tried to use me as a prop for an alibi and a rationalization for a motive.
I don't understand.
Mr. Wolfe does.
Indeed, I do. Did you really think me fool enough to believe your proposal, Mr. Veek?
It was plausible.
It was nonsense. You pretended you were handing James Collier plus the proofs of his guilt over to me in an effort to keep yourself out of the picture. But your proposition was silly. No matter how much I might have wanted to help you, I would have been powerless once James Collier went before a jury. You're too intelligent not to know that.
That couldn't have given you enough to go on.
It didn't. You yourself gave me more.
I did.
When you came to my room, you told me you knew Mr. Goodwin and I had come to Greendale, checked in at the hotel.
I did.
However, when I phoned you later and asked for an account of your movements between 10 and 10:30, you replied that you had driven to the hotel, signed in, and came directly to my room. Obviously, you already knew of my presence in the hotel. How? Only one way you could have known. You had seen Archie at some time prior to the time you checked in at the hotel, and the only place where Archie was
here, at the farm.
Yes, which told me Mr. Veek had been here at the time of Marshall's death. What was Veek doing here? Only one thing. Murder.
Then he killed the gunman.
No other possibility.
But, Jimmy, I thought he did it.
James Collier couldn't have killed Marshall because at the time he was killed, James Collier was already
dead.
Archie!
What's this?
Leave it, Gummy. Let's play.
Undrop that gun first. My arm! That's nice and cooperative, so... You'll be quiet for a while. The cop is back in the rabbit pen, Mr. Wolfe, guarding Collier's grave.
Grave, Archie?
Yeah, with James Collier in it.
Oh, poor Jimmy.
Veek knew the expose was coming. He had to shut Collier up. So he had his gunman, Marshall, kill Collier and bury him in the rabbit run back of the hutches. You spotted that, boss, because of...
A dead rabbit. The others scuttled away from the man who bore James Collier's body to that lonely spot. But one rabbit overcame his fear. He was too friendly.
And got killed for it. There was that
and the dirty fingernails of Marshall, the gunman who killed and buried James Collier. Your description indicated extreme neatness. The dirty fingernails were a wrong note.
Yeah, indicated he'd been digging. So we know now, don't we? Veek killed his own trigger man to frame a dead man for it. Collier would be thought guilty. He'd be hunted among the living. And all the while... Oh, I'm sorry, Claire.
It's all right, Archie. I didn't love Jimmy. That was all washed up. Mr. Wolfe, I understand everything, except why did Jimmy suddenly start staying at the farm with the rabbits?
He knew he'd be watched. He couldn't risk conveying his information by telephone or the mails. Nor could he be seen holding conversation with men who might be traced to Veek. But who would suspect a truck driver delivering carrots for the rabbits as being the go-between for Jimmy Collier and Veek?
Nero Wolfe. Which is why I hope there's an adequate bed in this house for Mr. Wolfe.
Well, I'm sure I'll be able to find one.
Splendid, Archie. You will have the police remove Mr. Veek, and then...
And then maybe Claire would like to go gathering rosebuds, huh? By moonlight?
I would like to.
Phooey. I shall go up to bed now. I've seen the moonlight more times than I care to remember. However, while you and Miss Claire stroll through the moonlight, Archie...
Yeah?
You might remember that rosebuds have thorns.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman program, produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Larry Dobkin as Archie Goodwin, and Martha Shaw, Hal Gerard, Herb Butterfield, Howard McNear, and Bill Johnstone. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you The Case of the Impolite Corpse. Don Stanley speaking. Three chimes mean good times on NBC. There's no cover charge at Duffy's Tavern. Just keep your dial on this NBC station this evening as Archie the manager, played by Ed Gardner, and his remarkable friends serve up another blue plate special of grilled English language, fresh laughs and whimsy a la mode. Another Friday fun favorite is the delightful Life of Riley, starring William Bendix as the beleaguered Chester A. Riley. Now it's Sam Spade. Then, The Magnificent Montague on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, to me, this episode has so far, of all of the Sidney Greenstreet episodes we've heard, had the greatest sense of being a Wolfe story. While the mystery isn't as complex as Stout's usual plot, I think that Greenstreet and Dobkin had the characters down pat in this episode. This was just very well done. Though I do question Wolfe leaving the flat at the behest of the governor, maybe the president or king, but a small allowance, but not too implausible. By the way, for some reason I can't fathom, this episode is often known as The Brave Rabbit, and with the lead character also being named Archie on Duffy's Tavern, that may be one of the more confusing promotions. We went from talking about Archie to hearing about another Archie on the show. But anyway, a good, well-done episode, very much Wolfe-esque. We have a few comments. I'm going to go ahead and share. This one, over on Facebook, Scott comments, I love the Nero Wolfe show. It's so well done. I'd also commented over on Facebook that I was reading the League of Frightened Men. Actually reading it on my iPod with my Kindle through iPod app, and got a couple comments regarding that. I'm listening to a Nero Wolfe book right now, and says Sharon, and Debbie says, I love the Nero Wolfe series. Rex Stout was a great writer. Indeed he was. It's very hard to have a book that be written and be still very engrossing 80 years later. Stout definitely had a great quality about his writing that you have to appreciate. I'm working through reading to or listening through as many of the Wolfe stories as I can find, as well as watching the ones that were on A&E. One that I'm really looking forward to is The Black Mountain, which, from what I gather, features Wolfe losing 100 pounds and heading off into the wilderness of Montenegro to avenge the death of a lifelong friend. Now, given the difficulty of getting an actor to lose 100 pounds, that would have been difficult to create for television. But definitely sounds different. I went ahead and I shared on New Year's Day a Hulu video of an episode of I Spy called A Cup of Kindness, which I was reminded of when I'm reading an article about Auld Lang Syne. And regarding I Spy, Jack points out, and many of the episodes were written by radio vets Morton Fine and David Friedkin, which is another nice reminder of how many of radio's great writers helped to make the early ages of television far more interesting and engaging than perhaps we have today. Well, that'll do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with Let George Do It. In the meantime, send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives. And remember Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off. Before we do get started, I do want to remind you about our book, Tales of the Dim Night. It's a hilarious story written by myself and my wife and published by Splashdown Books in New Zealand that tells the story of the world's ultimate superhero fan and what happens when he gets superpowers. Those who appreciate classic superhero stories are going to appreciate this as well. You can learn more about it at dimnight.com. Well, let's get into today's episode of Let George Do It, The Perfect Alibi.
District of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. The Perfect Alibi, another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice, danger's my stock and trade. If the heat's on and you can't seem to cool off, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear Mr. Valentine, I hate my husband. I hate him so much I've sat awake nights wondering if I had the nerve to kill him. But I'm a coward. I'm weak. I'm everything bad. It's his fault I am. But then, that's my fault for marrying him, isn't it? Mr. Valentine, I have a chance to escape, to get rid of him forever. If I keep my mouth shut, my husband will be dead inside of a few months. But I can't keep my mouth shut, can I? I can't be that bad. Or can I?
I'll be standing at the corner of 47th and Maple Drive at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Maybe she meant Maple Avenue, George.
Yeah, maybe. If there was one in town, only there isn't.
Oh. Laurie F. You know, George, she sounds like such a mixed-up person anyway that maybe
No, Brooksy, this is the place she meant, all right. And all we can do is just sit here and wait.
Yeah.
Hey, mister, going downtown? Give me a lift downtown?
I'm sorry.
It'd be all day if I stay in there waiting for a bus. You got plenty of room.
Look, I said I'm sorry. I'm not going anyplace.
Yeah, but you will be. A lot sooner than a bus.
Hey, get away from there.
Move over, sister.
Look out.
Hang on, Brooksy.
Well, hitchhikers are getting persistent, aren't they?
Yeah. And a funny-looking hitchhiker for a ritzy district like this.
Hey, watch it, George. Red light. Listen, do you suppose that maybe...
Mr. Valentine. Mr. Valentine?
Hey, quick, open your door, Brooksy.
Yeah.
You are Mr. Valentine, aren't you?
That's right, and you're Lauriette.
I know you must be. I saw that man there trying to get into your car. I was hiding in the drugstore, hoping he'd go away.
Why? Who is he?
I don't know, really, but he works for my husband. I know he does. He was following me, watching me. He was.
Okay. Well, I don't blame him. You're attractive. Now, suppose you relax and tell us about it.
No, not here. Let's go someplace where we can talk.
You hate your husband, don't you, Laurie?
More than I hate lizards.
Is there any particular reason? I mean, somebody to compare him with, for instance? Oh, I know this is off the subject, but sometimes a woman...
What if there is? What if there is another man? It doesn't have anything to do with this?
Okay. Now, as I get it, if you keep your mouth shut about something, your husband will die in a few months. Is that right?
Yes.
He wouldn't be expecting a hanging, would he?
Yes.
Murder?
Mr. Valentine, last night a man was shot just a block or two from here. Exclusive apartment house, the Cedar Crest.
Who was he? And just for the record, who's your husband?
The man was a business associate of my husband's from out of town, but he used to live here, and he's been back for the last month or more.
The man?
His name was Chauncey. Isn't that a funny name? He was a funny sort of man, I guess, too, but... Well, anyway, my husband hated him, and the police knew it.
Lots of people hate lots of other people.
Last night, my husband had an appointment with Chauncey. He was seen going into the apartment house. Sometime later, the shots were heard by the neighbors, and my husband doesn't have an alibi. He's in jail now. They'll hang him.
Hey, wait a minute now, hold it. He's got no alibi, but you have one for him. One that you haven't told yet, check?
Yes, Mr. Valentine. His character.
His what?
My husband just wouldn't commit murder, that's all.
You mean the lizard? The heel? The husband?
Oh, I know. I've said those things about him, and they're true. He's even worse than that. But he can't stand violence. He doesn't believe in it.
Does he carry a gun?
Well, only for self-protection. And he made a point of not taking it with him last night. He's going to make up with Chauncey, settle their differences. He even took him a present.
Now, look, I've heard the name Chauncey before someplace, so let's cut out the waltzing, Laurie. What's your last name? Who's your husband?
I'm Laurie Farrell. My husband is Nat Farrell.
Nat Farrell?
Yes, he's the biggest gangster in the city. All right, then don't help me. Don't do anything about it. Just sit there and don't help me.
Well, George,
I don't know, Brooks.
Oh, George, you're not going to get mixed up in a thing like that. Nat Farrell has earned 5, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And how do you know she wasn't lying? She's such a mess.
Let's cut across here, Angel.
Oh. But this is the block that apartment's in, the Cedar Crest. George is just sticking your neck out. All you'll do is end up a patsy or a court.
Look, save the obituaries, Angel. All I want is the newspaper.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Come on, in here.
Well, the old man did it again today when he lifted one over the wall on the
Which
third.
one a newspaper
By the end of the
for?
6th inning, the lead...
Well, it be, mister. Make it fast. Giants won. You hear that?
That's all I want, thanks.
Next edition has some of the baseball scores.
That's okay. I'm just a funny paper man.
Today, that he has turned down an offer to play another season.
There it is, Angel. All over the front page. Nat Farrell. Behind bars for the first time. Hand-painted necktie, not even must.
Chauncey was a racketeer, too, wasn't he? Business associate. George, I tell you, that woman is absolutely...
Well, look, Mac, buy your own newspaper, huh?
All right, sure.
Hey, wait a minute. What's the bright idea?
You George Valentine.
You like to make something out of it, redhead?
Here. Here's $200. That's all I could raise on short notice.
Well, you should have tried harder. You're passing out money. Haven't you got some for me, too?
Stay away, will you, Valentine? Just stay away. That's all I want. The guy's no good. He's an egotistical, selfish,
I
cold-blooded...
suppose you're talking about Nat Farrell.
I said just stay away. Leave him in jail.
Why, redhead?
Because I said so. You start messing around, Valentine.
Now, look, you just keep your hair on.
Let go of me.
Hey, keep it down, will you guys? They're giving the Major League scores now.
See? Isn't polite to fight in a public place.
Valentine, I'm warning you. You'll get a private place, all right? I'm sorry. Give me my money back. Only leave him in jail, you hear me? Leave him in jail.
Ah, now look what you guys done. I don't even know who's going to pitch for Boston.
I tell you, I'm going to hang out a sign that says man at work.
Lieutenant Riley, I'm just asking questions, that's all.
You sure that's all?
It is if I have anything to say about it.
Listen, Valentine, I've been trying to nail that guy Farrell since I polished my first brass button. He's the reason for half the trouble in this town. And now that I've got him jugged, there's nobody's going to pull the cork. Not even sniff around. So beat it, will you? Goodbye.
Okay, Riley, okay, I get it. Railroad man at work.
What?
Sure.
Valentine, you know darn well nobody's getting railroaded. I've got a case, you understand?
All right, so I said the wrong thing.
Farrell ran this guy Chauncey out of town a couple of years ago. Only Chauncey came back last month against threats. Trying to muscle into Farrell's business.
Yeah, keep talking.
Look, chum, I've got lots of witnesses. The doorman at the Cedar Crest saw Farrell go upstairs at 7:30. When the doorman went off duty at 8, Farrell was still there. At 8:15 on the button, five people, mind you, heard the shots through the open windows out back. And I was there at 8:20.
All right, it's a circumstantial case so far.
Well, what if it is? Farrell admits he was there, claims he doesn't know what time he left, but he didn't show up at home until after 9. And he won't explain it. Every 2 minutes, something new comes in against him. Oh, you. There, you made me mad enough to tell you. Now, you happy?
No. Because you see, Lieutenant, Farrell's wife.
Huh? Oh, I know. I talked to her. She hasn't got anything.
And like I told George, she's so confused that maybe...
Sure. She's confused and mixed up and messed up. Now, look, Riley, two things hit me in the eye. One, Farrell doesn't like violence. He never has.
Yeah.
That's why he's been so hard to nail for his other stuff. And if there were a business killing to be done, a guy that big doesn't do it himself. He hires somebody.
Maybe this time he lost his temper.
Over business? No, Brooks, he's too cold-blooded. All right, point number 2. No alibi. A guy that big always has an alibi.
So he slipped out. I'm crying in my lace handkerchief. I'm tearing my hair out with sympathy.
Now, look, Riley, I hate that guy as much as you do. But I doubt if he killed Chauncey.
Oh, sometimes I'd like to... wait a minute. Come on in my office. I want you to meet somebody. Oh, Mr. Jefferson.
Hello, Lieutenant. What is it?
I want you to meet these people, Mr. Jefferson. Mr. Jefferson, here is Farrell's lawyer. Miss Brooks?
How do you do?
And George Valentine.
Oh, yeah?
How do you do, sir?
Mr. Valentine is interested in the case. He's from the Humane Society or something.
Well, it's unusual anyone interested in my client.
Well, tell him what you've been doing all day, Mr. Jefferson.
Expose the defense? Now, really? Oh, what difference does it make?
I've been pounding the pavements. Riley knows. I've talked to everyone within a 47-mile radius of the Cedar Crest, armed with questions and pictures of Farrell.
You mean looking for friendly witnesses? Did you find any?
What do you think?
Mr. Valentine had it in mind that he'd like to help.
Is that so?
Oh, but he doesn't know anything.
I see. Mr. Valentine, I have no business saying this, but then I suppose I'm not very orthodox anyway. What I mean is, the man who takes pity on the hungry tiger usually forfeits his head. You understand me?
Maybe. But where was the tiger between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock last night?
Why don't you ask him, Mr. Valentine? Yes, ask him.
What a presumptuous question. Where was I? Where were you?
All right, Farrell, skip it.
Who are you anyway, Valentine? What are you doing here in my cell?
Watching you pick your teeth.
Pâté sandwiches. I had them sent in from Pierre's, you know. Only decent pâté in town.
Yeah, you lead a hard life, even in jail, don't you?
You think I appreciate the finer things? You should have met Chauncey.
He went into the coffins.
Inevitably, with his business habits. But I had no quarrel with him personally. And when it came to taste... Here, you see my jacket? Gold buttons, gold trim. It's my own design. I took Chauncey a duplicate last night as a gift, as a matter of fact. He collects them. And silk shirts. And his collection of rare books. Oh, I've learned a lot from Chauncey, the rat.
You didn't kill him, did you?
No. No, I left this place sometime after 8. But I don't know just when.
He was shot at 8:15. Where were you until 9 o'clock?
I'm tired of that question.
Plenty of witnesses saw you go in there, saw your car, but they didn't see you come out. Were you framed?
I'm getting tired of you, too.
Does your wife know where you were?
Get out of here. Now.
Oh. I hit a sore point, huh?
My personal life is no one's business but my own.
It won't be personal when you're wearing a hand-woven rope necktie.
Get out of here. Who asked you to snoop anyway? Like any small-time prying little shamus. Come to the big boy offering to help, thinking the big boy might pay big cash for help.
You can keep your change, Buster.
Well, leave me in jail, you see. I take care of myself, understand? And in case you don't understand, in case your nose gets any nosier, I promise that my friends will give you a reward. My own special design. A marble-trimmed slab.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. When your car wants to tell you it's wasting power, you'll hear from it, all right. And what you'll hear is engine ping. It's a noise that also means your car's engine is strained and laboring, wasting fuel as well as power. To avoid this power robbery, depend on Chevron Supreme gasoline. It's specially blended to give your car ping-free power under every driving condition. Faster starts for cold engines, quicker pickup for traffic, and extra power on hills. Chevron Supreme's a premium quality gasoline that's climate-tailored, too. Whether you're on the coast, in the desert, or in the mountains, depend on it to help give your car its best performance. In fact, for today's high-compression engines, you can't buy a better gasoline. Get Chevron Supreme at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Laurie Farrell hates her husband, but her conscience tells her he shouldn't be in jail. For murder, that is. He's just not the type. Of course, Lieutenant Riley insists he'll have a case against Nat Farrell, and you certainly agree that the fastidious gangster looks his best in stripes. But you can't help suspecting that the woman is right, that this time her husband has been miscast. And if that's so, then this isn't justice, is it? If your name is George Valentine and you, too, have a conscience, you stick right on the case.
You didn't listen to me, Valentine. You're still on the Farrell case. How come?
Last time we met, Redhead, you were offering $200 to keep Mrs. Farrell's husband in jail. Who do you work for, anyway? Okay, I'll play a guessing game with you. Somebody trying to frame him, maybe. Muscle into his business while he's locked up, huh? Oh, wait a minute. She's got a boyfriend. Maybe you work for him.
Goodbye, Valentine.
Come on, answer me, chum. Don't be a sucker. You'll be caught in the middle.
That's where you are right now, Valentine. I bought a gun since the last time.
Oh, George, it's like a nest of snakes. Every time you turn around, there's another one leering at you.
Yeah. Even Riley has a man tagging me.
I told you we'd stick our necks out, and we have. The honest people look down their noses, and everybody else looks down ours.
Snakes, necks, noses.
But we haven't got anywhere. You can't even get to talk to your client.
Well, that's not her fault, Angel. She's surrounded just like we are. Seems everyone in town wants Farrell out of the way and me off the case.
George, what if they did get him for a crime he didn't commit? Oh, I know it wouldn't be right, but if...
Brooksy, you can't compromise. But I'll grant you if it weren't for his wife, I'll get him. Yeah, Valentine speaking.
Valentine, I hope you choke.
Yeah, why?
I guess you're pretty proud of yourself, aren't you?
Oh, come on, get off it. Listen, Riley.
Now, you listen to me. The chief inspector's talking to Nat Farrell right now. In 5 minutes, Farrell will walk out of jail a free man. That's your pal, Buster.
Look, I tell you, I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't dig him up any alibi.
Honest, Lieutenant, all the people we talked to couldn't remember anything.
Nobody sees him leave Chauncey's apartment. Nobody remembers any time.
What time?
We know Farrell was still up there at 8 o'clock. The shots were heard at 8:15 sharp. But no one actually saw Farrell leave the place until this thing showed up.
Yeah. Well, hiya, mister.
Baseball.
Yeah, that's me. Libby, they call me. It was baseball, don't it, too? You know, it's a funny thing.
What's he talking about?
He runs a little cigar store in the same block as the Cedar Crest.
Sure, it was baseball. Local games always start at the same time. Now, you see what I mean? Now, look, this guy, see, he comes by the store, takes a look in my phone book, and then he gets into his car.
Nat Farrell?
Well, I didn't know him from an umpire then, but it was him, all right. And I know the time, too. You see, the Seals against the Stars. Maltzberg is on the mound, see? Play ball, the announcer said.
Ah, shut up. Games always start at 8:15. Farrell remembers it, too.
8:15. A perfect alibi.
Yeah. Seals won, you know, 7-3. Behind until the fourth, see? But then all of a sudden...
Wait a minute. How come you didn't show up with this perfect alibi until now?
Well, gosh, mister, until I saw Farrell's picture in the paper, how did I know it was him? Had been up at Chauncey's. You know, I never look at the paper until the sports final because...
Oh, shut up. The inspector's already worked it over, Valentine. No holes, and this Gabby guy here, he's new in town. No connection with Farrell.
I should hope to tell you, you know, he's no bleacher boy.
Yeah, but, you knew Chauncey, huh?
Oh, him, it's different. You know, starting a new business is like Bill Veck took over the Indians, you see. Give the customers what they want. Now, look, I made a couple of deliveries, but that's about all.
Okay, Riley, suppose we take...
And a good spender? Yes, sir. $10 boxes of cigars. You should have seen him puffing away in a gold trim jacket. Like baseball, too. Hey, you know, it's too bad he died.
Oh, Lippy, relax, will you? Where did Farrell go after he left your place? Between 8:15 and 9 o'clock. Any idea? Or did he just look at the phone book, get in his car, and steam off?
Yeah, that's right. You guessed it, mister. You know, I ain't no prognosticator, but you see, there's a funny thing.
And where's Farrell now?
Well, the inspector's kissed him goodbye already. His wife was waiting for him.
His wife? Had she been here long?
Oh, not so you'd notice. Showed up just a second before you did, all set to be sympathetic. But when we told her we didn't have enough on her husband to hold him anymore, well, she darn near fainted.
Come on, Brooksy, we gotta move fast.
Huh?
Well, George, what on earth?
Farrell's home in the suburbs. Come on, Angel.
Hey, what? Hold it. Who do you think you're working for now?
Myself, Riley. I don't want to be responsible for a murder.
They must not be home yet.
Yeah. Hey, now, wait a minute. Here's one looks loose. Here it is.
Aren't any of the windows unlocked?
Not a chance, Angel.
Shh. Oh, George, hurry up. They're coming.
Okay, take it easy. There. Now, come on, in you go.
Ouch.
What's the matter? Stove. Okay, it's the kitchen. Shh, quiet.
All right, Tony, thank you. Wait, please. Well, my dear, May I take your coat?
No. Well, I can do it, thanks.
You'd like some music on the radio, Laurie?
No, thanks.
A cigarette,
Stop
huh?
it, Nat. Why don't you say what you think?
Oh, my dear, it's you who's thinking things.
Did you get that man at the jail, Lippy? How much did you pay him?
What, the alibi? No, not a cent. A coincidence, honey, that's all. Saved by a busybody. You didn't like it, did you?
Yes. Yes, I did. I wanted you to get out. I knew you didn't kill Chauncey.
Yeah, you knew nothing of the kind. But I didn't tell anyone about it last night. I was crossing my fingers, biding my time, giving somebody enough rope.
There was nothing last night.
Well, whenever it was, I left Chauncey's until 9 o'clock. The Paris hat shop. I've forgotten the address, but the woman says my hat will be done. Pick it up, will you, dear?
You're hurting my arm.
I have to look it up in a phone book, and it's all the way across town. When I get there, it's closed. You knew it'd be closed.
No.
A little wild goose chase with no one for an alibi. You were with a man, weren't you?
Leave me alone.
A man? I've guessed it before. There's one thing I will not abide.
Stop it. What if I was? Is it wrong to be sick of this life? Being watched all the time?
Now, who is he? Who is he?
No, I won't tell you.
I give you everything and you go.
Who is he? Okay, lover boy, that's enough.
Valentine.
Yeah, you got quite a way with women, haven't you?
What are you doing in my house, Valentine?
I thought you were touchy on the subject of your wife.
Ned, I hired him. I did. I hired him to get you out of jail, honestly. Didn't I? I didn't think you'd kill.
Yes, sister, but you also admitted you had a boyfriend. Hey, where you going?
I have a man outside who's bigger than you, Valentine. We'll find out who's telling the truth. We'll find out who's... Stand still. Valentine said. Answer it, Laurie.
Yes, Nat.
Hello, Laurie. I was just...
Well, Mr. Jefferson. Come in, come in.
Matt, what are you doing? Wait, it's good to see you.
My lawyer, Mr. Valentine. He doesn't even know I'm out of jail.
I'm not surprised.
What? Oh, Matt, I just thought I'd run over and check your papers, see if there was anything needed to be done.
He can't get over it. Here I am.
Of course he can't. He took your photograph for blocks around the Cedar Crest, trying to find someone who'd give you an alibi. And yet somehow he overlooked the most obvious person.
Who do you mean?
The guy in the corner cigar store.
What? Shut up, Valentine. I can do my own thinking. I'm way ahead of you. Deliberately overlooked that man, didn't you, Jefferson?
Matt, take it easy.
So convenient if I would stay in jail, if I would be hung. You've been trying to get control of my business for a long time.
I'm your lawyer, Nat. That's all I'm...
The man with the keys to my house, the knowledge of my papers. You were making sure that I'd be hung.
No,
And
Nat.
my wife. You're the one. You and my wife.
Stop it. No.
Well...
No, you don't, Valentine.
Stop it. The gun in that desk.
Get away from me. Nat, don't do it. Don't shoot. Get away.
Around now.
Who's the boss? Show you who runs this town? I'll show you.
Yeah. You showed us, all right.
Well, it's about time, Lieutenant Riley.
I guess it's all right if I arrest him for murder now, isn't it?
Okay. Take it easy, Mrs. Farrell. Your boyfriend's all right.
What? With 6 shots in him?
Don't jump to conclusions, Riley. Jefferson here might have been trying to take over Farrell's business. But the boyfriend is somebody else. And I guess the guy who begged me to leave hubby in jail.
What's that?
He was so afraid Nat would find out. Kill us both.
A guy like a redhead, maybe?
I was out with him last night while Nat was at Chauncey's. And that store I sent him to. I told Red I thought it was hopeless. I'd never get free of Nat.
Well, lady, you're rid of him now. The man who couldn't stand violence. Well, Valentine, so you figured he'd go for his wife. At least you saved her.
Yes, and the redhead seems like a nice person. Maybe now she can get herself straightened out. Huh?
Sure. You don't want to feel too bad about not being right all the time.
Well, Farrell killed in passion. He just said he wouldn't commit a cold-blooded business murder.
Like Chauncey? Well, if we have trouble with that alibi, we've got him on another murder. It doesn't make much difference.
Yes, it does, Riley, it does.
What?
I've said all along Farrell didn't kill Chauncey. Now I can prove it.
Huh?
What?
Okay, listen, children. We know Jefferson was trying to muscle in, take over the business. Okay. Now, what better way to do it than get rid of a competitor named Chauncey and have Farrell blamed for it? 2 birds with 1 stone.
Are you trying to tell me that Jefferson shot Chauncey?
Riley, I've said all along that big boys don't do their own business shooting.
George?
Yes, Angel. It's more likely somebody he hired to do the job, somebody he brought in from out of town, set up in a convenient spot to watch the victim, watch his visitors.
Somebody who had easy access to Chauncey's apartment.
Like making deliveries. Yeah, Riley, it's the guy who got scared when we started nosing around. Or maybe he wanted to shake somebody down, I don't know. But anyway, he decided to back down on Jefferson, turn Farrell loose, cover his own tracks, only instead he uncovered his own neck.
How do you know?
That baseball boy, Lippy, he just talked too much.
Huh?
Yeah, he described Chauncey as wearing a gold-trimmed jacket. But Chauncey didn't even own that particular jacket until Farrell gave it to him as a gift that same evening.
That's right.
So Lippy had to be there afterwards. Holy smoke, what am I standing here for? I'm the guy who's got it.
Oh, but the alibi. Why did Lippy give Farrell the alibi?
Yeah, sure. I know the alibi. You know, people always forget, Angel, when a guy makes up an alibi for another guy and the other guy accepts it.
Then he's given himself one, of course.
That's right. This perfect alibi was like a bicycle built for two, with both passengers set for a one-way trip.
It doesn't cost much to keep the outside of your car bright and shining, but an engine repair is another matter. That costs real money. That's why I want to tell you about RPM motor oil, how it saves the life of your car's engine. Let's start with the proved fact that corrosive rust is the cause of 80% of engine wear. It starts the moment your engine stops and is caused by condensation of acid-laden moisture. But RPM motor oil is specially compounded to prevent this internal rust. It contains an adhering agent that coats the inside of an engine with a moisture-proof film. Even though your car stands idle for days or weeks, RPM stays on the job, wards off the attack of moisture and consequent rust. No wonder RPM is first choice in the West. It's the oil that stops 80% of engine wear. Ask for RPM at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Next week, when we find George Valentine and Brooksy in the hallway outside their office door, we'll hear...
George! Oh, your cheek's bleeding.
It's okay.
Here, give me the keys.
Wait a minute, Brooksy. He said the office was locked, but I don't remember locking it. No, it's not. What in the name of...
Oh.
Mr. Paulson.
Oh.
And here's the gun. It's got a silencer. And guess what, Brooksy? He's about as dead as a bullet will make a man.
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Frances Robinson as Claire. Wally Mayer appears as Lieutenant Riley. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Virginia Gregg as Laurie, Harry Bartell as the Redhead, Dick Ryan as Lippy, Ed Begley as Jefferson, and Larry Dobkin as Farrell. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, this story was almost hard-boiled, I thought, with some pretty noirish elements. A clear sign of that is when the detective is explaining the difference between killing in passion and business killings, when you're talking about a mob boss. We do have a couple listener comments. Chris emails in with a couple questions about casting. First, regarding the Let George Do It Christmas episode. the leader of the crooks. Was he also the Penguin from the original Batman with Adam West and the old dad and grumpy old man? I'm not good with actors' names, but I swear that voice is the same. Well, Chris, the actor you're thinking of is Burgess Meredith. And no, Meredith did not make an appearance. His radio work, for whatever reason, tended to be, higher class stuff. The Columbia Workshop, the Kate Smith Hour, Command Performance, really did not make guest appearances on detective shows. But there are a few voices that sound very much familiar. The only things I've heard him in for sure is an episode of This Is My Best with Orson Welles, and also an episode of Cavalcade of America, which actually in that episode, Bob Bailey was the co-star. Also, I ask, was Lieutenant DeRosa from the Joan Sebastian matter, the lieutenant from Let George Do It? Yeah. Really, on Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, they had an incredible group of actors who rotated on and played either the heavies or the police. You had Raymond Burr, William Johnstone, and Wally Mayer, who all seem to keep coming back. And he goes on to say, thank you in advance for any help you provide. I'm just curious, so if you cannot find anything, no worries. I still love your show and never miss an episode. Thank you for the work you put into it. Also, I just ordered my Kindle last night. The first book I plan to read on it, Tales of the Dim Night. A very good choice. Thank you, Chris. And thanks so much for listening and for all your support. Finally, we have a comment from Rebecca, who says, I was having trouble sleeping this summer, so often played your podcast to relax and distract me from my pregnancy. I now have a 6-month-old who has trouble sleeping. My husband jokingly suggested I play your podcast to help him relax, and it works beautifully. Thank you from 2 generations of great detective lovers. Happy thoughts from Rebecca in Ontario, Canada. Well, thanks so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate the email and feedback. Well, that'll do it for now. Before we get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, I first of all want to let you know, those of you who have our app or our premium site, that we do have up a new extra. This is Sidney Greenstreet appearing in a comedy role on the Siltis Variety Theater. This is the first of 3 programs we're going to do with Sidney Greenstreet, so be sure to check that out. Also, in this current economic situation, one company has been growing like no other. It's Netflix. The reason Netflix has been adding more and more customers is that they really have got some 21st century convenience. You can keep your DVDs for as long as you want, and you also have access to unlimited streaming. You can try Netflix out for free for a month. Go to netflix.greatdetectives.net. Well, let's go ahead and we'll get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Adventures of the Original Hamlet.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Now, once again, let's drop in on the famous colleague of Sherlock Holmes, our good friend, Dr. Watson. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
And a very good evening to you, Mr. Bell. I'd almost given up hope of your coming tonight.
Oh, I know it's pretty late, Dr. Watson, but I saw that your light was still on, so I thought I'd drop in.
I'm glad that you did, Mr. Bell. Applying the methods of my friend Sherlock Holmes, I would venture a guess that you're on your way home from the theater.
Amazing deduction, Dr. Watson.
I lament to, Mr. Bell. Isn't that a theater program I see sticking out of your pocket?
Of course.
Oh, what was the play?
Hamlet. Very fine production, too. Have you seen it?
No, not lately, but I think I can claim to be one of the very few men in this world to have seen a far older Hamlet than any that you saw performed tonight.
An older Hamlet? I don't quite understand.
Some 400 years older. You've heard me speak of Professor Moriarty?
The arch-villain whom Sherlock Holmes considered his most worthy opponent?
Precisely. I think that Professor Moriarty would cheerfully have given his right arm to possess the Hamlet to which I'm referring. At least he was quite willing to commit murder for it. I remember... Oh, but here I am monopolizing the conversation when I know that you've got something quite important to tell our listeners.
Yes, Dr. Watson, I'd like to tell our listeners about a modern trend in hair grooming that's in such great demand today by men who value their appearance. It's called Kreml Hair Tonic. Frankly, man, Kreml is the only hairdressing I've ever found that really makes my hair stay in place. An outstanding feature of Kreml is that it always keeps hair so neatly groomed, yet never gives it that cheap, greasy look. Kreml never leaves hair full of sticky goo. Your hair feels so soft and looks so natural. And men, don't tell me that you won't be mightily pleased when your wife or sweetheart remarks how attractive your hair always looks. How it feels so nice to touch, never greasy or sticky. It's spelled Kreml. Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, what about Professor Moriarty and the original Hamlet? I'm all ears.
It all began in the most commonplace manner imaginable. I was walking down the street with Holmes in answer to a completely routine call from Scotland Yard.
Hurry up, Watson. Don't lag.
I must say, Holmes, that as a medical man, I heartily endorse this recent passion of yours for long, brisk walks.
My dear Watson, the constant succession of dull cases with which we've recently been favored leaves me with so much surplus energy that I can only sleep by exercising myself into a state of utter stuporous exhaustion.
Good heavens, that carriage! Fetch it, Doctor! Fetch it, Holmes, did you see that? That carriage ran right over that old man.
Poor devil.
I better see what I'm going to do for him, Holmes.
Well, that's your métier, Watson. Look after the poor chap. I must be getting on to the yard.
The poor man. Move to one side, please. Move to one side, please. I'm a doctor.
Let the doctor through.
I'm all right, sir. I'm all right, thank you.
Well, there are no bones broken, I'm glad to say. Here, let me help you to stand up.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I'm all right. Quite all right. Very kind of you to come to my assistance.
Oh, not at all. I'm a doctor.
At least I picked a good spot for my accident. I see there's a pub right across the way. I hope you'll at least let me have the pleasure of standing you a drink.
That's the quickest fee I ever received. Lead the way, sir.
Two whiskies and sodas, miss.
Right, sir.
Allow me to introduce myself, sir. My name's Franklin Burley.
Oh, and here's my card, Mr. Burley.
Not the Dr. Watson.
Oh, you mean the little paper I wrote on the common cold in the last issue of the Lancet?
I don't know about that, but aren't you Sherlock Holmes' colleague?
Yes, I am.
God sent you to me, Dr. Watson.
Oh, really?
I've been wanting to put my problem into competent hands.
What do you mean?
I didn't stumble in front of that carriage, Dr. Watson. I was pushed. Someone's been trying to murder me.
No, Mr. Burley,
I tell you, it's the truth. 2 weeks ago, a wheel came off the carriage that I was driving. A most convenient accident. Last Wednesday, as I was passing St. George's in Hanover Square, an enormous balk of timber fell, missing me by less than a yard.
Well, why on earth should anybody want to kill you?
Here you are, James.
Oh, thank you.
Because I saw it, Dr. Watson.
Saw what?
I saw the ghost of the Burleys, which no man may see and live.
Oh, no, my dear fellow. After all, this is the 19th century.
We're a very old family, the Burleys. Not nobility, but just as old, just as proud, and just as poor. My father left me 2 inheritances. The magnificent Burley Library, which has been in our family for over 300 years, and the Burley ghost. Oh, you needn't look at me like that. I'd always scoff, too, when I heard tales of the ghost. But a week ago, I saw it in the library.
Very well, Mr. Burley. May I ask whose ghost it's supposed to be?
The original collection of books in the library was stolen from an abbey expropriated by Henry VIII. When the abbot resisted, he was killed, and it's his ghost that, according to legend, haunts the library.
I don't suppose you could describe the ghost?
That's where you're wrong, Dr. Watson. I saw it, or him, if you prefer, quite clearly. He was extremely tall, very thin. His forehead a high, pale curve, with his eyes 2 sunken pits of blackness.
Gracious me.
But most of all, I was struck by the slow, almost hypnotic, constant oscillation of his head from side to side. in a manner which I can only describe as curiously and horribly reptilian. You and Mr. Holmes must help me, Dr. Watson. You must. I can see from your expression that you think I'm merely suffering from delusions, imagining persecutions that do not exist, but I tell you, my life is at stake.
Mr. Burley, as a medical man, I'll admit that at least you believe you're telling the truth. Tell me, do you live alone?
No, my son lives with me. A good enough sort, though I could wish he had a bit more purpose in life. But his wife...
What about his wife?
When my son was in Ceylon running a tea plantation, he married a half-caste woman. She's utterly strange, a terrible creature. I more than half suspect that she's behind everything that's happened.
Rather a weird alliance, isn't it, between your ghost and your son's wife? All right, Mr. Burley, I'll speak to Holmes, if that's the only thing that'll set your mind at rest. It won't be the first time that he's driven a ghost back to its lair. No, do stop scraping on that violin of yours, Holmes. I'm trying to tell you about this poor chap's delusions.
I assure you, Watson, you've been receiving my closest attention. So your friend Mr. Burley suspects his son's half-caste wife. Go on.
Well, that's all there is to it. I promised him that I'd tell you his story, although obviously the poor man is the victim of a persecution phobia.
I wonder, Watson. I wonder.
Oh, now, really, Holmes.
There are certain definite points of interest. That description of the ghost, for instance. Tall, very thin, high forehead, with a constant oscillation of his head in a reptilian manner. Who does that remind you of, Watson?
Remind me of? I don't know.
Could it be anyone but our friend Moriarty?
Good heavens, you're right.
And the library of the nature that you described might well contain treasures worthy of the professor's highly selective interests. I tell you, Watson, it sounds precisely like Moriarty. The inspection of the library in his ghostly guise, followed by the realization that if he's to secure without suspicion the treasures he covets, their owner's death is necessary. Come, Watson. Stop lounging in your chair.
Oh, but where are we off to?
Mr. Burley said he was returning to an ancestral home at the seaside in Cornwall.
Yes?
We shall join him there. It's been too long since I've crossed swords with such a masterly adversary as Professor Moriarty.
I tell you, Holmes, sea breezes, the salt air, and the sun shining on the water make a man realize that life is worth living.
If you don't stop admiring the surf instead of watching where you're putting your feet along the singularly aimless meanderings of this path, you won't have any life left to live. It's a good 200-foot drop to those extremely unpleasant-looking rocks below.
Yes, I see what you mean. Say, Holmes, look down there. I never realized that those Cornish cliffs are simply riddled with caves.
Which no doubt accounts for their popularity with smugglers in bygone days. That and their inaccessibility, except from the sea.
The path seems to divide just up there ahead of us. Of course, that fool of an innkeeper didn't tell us which fork to take.
A problem, Watson, but not one incapable of solution.
May I ask how you propose to solve it? Deductive reasoning, I suppose?
Not at all. I shall merely inquire the proper direction from that boy who seems to be bird's nesting behind those bushes.
Oh.
Here, young fellow.
Hi, my lad.
Good morning, my boy.
I'm not doing nothing I shouldn't.
Of course not. There's nothing to be frightened of. We simply want to know the way to Burley Manor.
Burley Manor, my boy. To the right or to the left?
Oh, you want Burley Manor, eh?
That is the impression we're trying to convey.
Everybody knows where Burley Manor is.
Well, we don't. Where is it?
Straight along the path. That way.
Pathetic sight. When will our civilization advance sufficiently to produce a race free of such pitiable creatures as that?
Oh, I don't know. The boy looks well-fed and happy. Why shouldn't he? Nothing to do but walk round barefoot and climb about the cliffs all day. Seems rather a pleasant life. I wouldn't mind being an idiot myself.
Jackie, where are you?
If you're looking for that barefooted boy, madam, he went off towards the cliffs.
Oh, then he won't be back for hours. He hunts birds' nests and eggs. Sells them for a few pennies.
Very sound hobby. I used to do a little bird's nesting myself when I was a boy.
I wanted him to run an errand for me, but it's no match.
The boy told us that we should take this path to Burley Manor, but he seemed a trifle wanting.
If you're going to Burley Manor, I will be glad to show you the way. I'm Mrs. Stephen Burley.
Good Lord, not the...
Your father-in-law invited us down to see his library, Mrs. Burley. May I introduce Dr. Watson?
How do you do?
My name is Sherlock Holmes.
I'm very glad to know you both. Now, if you'll just follow me along the path. It's rather narrow, so I'm afraid we'll have to go in single file.
Just attractive girl, eh, Holmes?
Quite. Which makes me wonder all the more why she has evidently been weeping.
So that's Burley Manor. Impressive-looking old place, I must say. They built them to last in those days.
I suppose it is impressive. But is it a house which conveys to you an aura of happiness, Dr. Watson?
Well, I can't say that I've ever...
Oh, there's Stephen now on the terrace.
Lila, where the devil have you been?
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
How do you do? Glad to know you.
Your father asked them down to see the library.
The library? Oh, stacks of weird old books in there. Stuff's never been catalogued. Can't make any sense out of it myself.
No, it's not my dish of tea either.
Felt like reading Hamlet one night. Found some old black letter thing I could barely spell my way through. And from the little I made out, it wasn't even the right form of the play.
Really, Mr. Burley? How was that?
Oh, it started out with some sort of a prologue. All about ghosts and revenge. Never saw that in Hamlet.
Stephen, where is your father? I haven't seen him since I packed his lunch. Has he gone off to the cliffs already?
You must have just missed him, Mr. Holmes. He often spends the day browsing about out there. Takes lunch along with him.
And he's gone off alone? Which path did he take?
The one toward the cliffs. But I don't...
Come, Watson. There's not a moment to lose.
Bushes. I might as well try to hurry through a bramble hedge.
I only pray we catch up to him in time.
What was all that about Hamlet, Holmes?
Only that there is indeed a treasure here, Watson, and one fully worthy of Professor Moriarty's distinguished attention.
Treasure? What sort?
From Stephen's unseeing description, I deduce that the Burley Library must contain the Hamlet.
The Hamlet? Oh, what's that?
The original play ascribed to Thomas Kidd, upon which Shakespeare based his version. Not a single copy is known to exist in the entire world, Watson. It would be absolutely priceless.
Gracious me. I say, Holmes, look. Up there ahead. I just caught a glimpse of a man's back beyond those trees. It must be Burley.
Good. Mr. Burley! Mr. Burley!
The wind's blowing towards us. He can't hear you.
Hurry up, Watson.
We catch him beyond that bend in the path. Great heavens! How appalling. Why, the man's literally blown to bits.
As I feared, Watson, we were just too late.
It'll be interesting to see if Sherlock Holmes really was too late. But, men, it's never too late to help improve the appearance of your hair. If you're having trouble keeping your hair in place, if it's dry, lifeless looking, why not try Kreml Hair Tonic? Honestly, I think Kreml is by far one of the greatest hair dressings ever discovered. Kreml keeps hair in perfect order from morning until night, with a nice, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never gives hair that cheap, greasy look. It never smothers hair down with sticky goo, which makes the hair and scalp feel so dirty. In addition, Kreml makes hair a cinch to comb. At the same time, it removes dandruff flakes. It relieves itching of dry scalp and makes your scalp feel so clean and refreshed. Next time you get a haircut, ask your barber for an application of Kreml. In the meantime, buy a bottle at any drug counter. Kreml. Kreml Hair Tonic. And now Dr. Watson, what happened when you and Sherlock Holmes found that Mr. Burley had been the victim of an explosion on those Cornish cliffs?
Holmes sent me back to the house. As soon as I had reported what had happened, I hurried back to the cliffs where I found Holmes standing lost in meditation, his tall, gaunt form silhouetted against the sea. Holmes, I've sent a servant from the house to fetch the police.
Good man.
What's that you've got there?
A few barely identifiable fragments of the lunchbox Burley was carrying. From the marks of the explosion, it is obvious that the bomb was in it.
I see. Great Scott, Holmes. Young Mrs. Burley said that she packed that lunchbox.
Precisely. And you will observe these footprints leading away here in the softer ground at the edge of the path.
Naked footprints. That barefoot boy, the idiot. He saw it happen, was frightened by the explosion, and ran away in a panic.
You'll notice how smooth the footprints are?
Smooth?
Never mind. There's little we can do now but await the police. And I doubt if it will be long before they arrest a murderer. I should like to suggest, Superintendent Maddox, that you broaden the course of your inquiry.
If you don't mind, Mr. Holmes, I'll conduct my questioning in my own way.
Not at all, Superintendent.
What a rude fellow.
Now, Mrs. Burley, it'll be a lot better for you if you help me instead of hindering me.
I've been trying to answer your questions, Superintendent. Although only a fool could fail to see where they're leading.
Now, Lila, the superintendent's only trying to find out the truth.
Very well. I'm innocent. And if all you want is the truth, you should have it. I hated my father-in-law, and he hated me.
Lila, don't say any more.
And that isn't all. All the gossip you picked up from the servants this afternoon is true, Superintendent. My husband and I quarreled this morning. Quarreled bitterly. Stephen talked of divorce. His father's constant pressure has made him so confused that he no longer knows his own mind.
That's not true, Lila. I still love you.
So if that's what you wanted to know, Superintendent. Yes. I'm glad he's dead. I hated him. I hated him.
I think that'll be quite enough, Mrs. Burley. I shall have to take you with me to the chief constable. The charge is murder.
Oh, you're crazy, Maddox. My wife didn't kill my father. The fact that she's told you all these things should be proof enough.
I'm sorry, Mr. Burley. I've got to do my duty as I see it. Come along, Mrs. Burley.
Very well. I'm ready.
I'll come along with you, my dear.
No, darling. Stay here and help Mr. Holmes in any way you can. That's the best way for you to help me.
She's quite right, my boy.
Now, come along, Mrs. Burley.
Mr. Holmes, I'll offer you any sum you wish to clear my wife.
Your father was my client. I already have a duty to find his murderer.
And you think that Lila...
I think the superintendent would have arrested her twice as quickly if he had known of the other possible motive. That in revenge she had conspired with Professor Moriarty against your father.
Then you're leaving? You won't help me?
There are loose ends to clear up, Mr. Burley. I must send Dr. Watson on an errand. As for myself, my first objective is to inspect the famous Burley Library.
I brought you some sandwiches, Mr. Holmes. You've been in here for hours.
I'm afraid I've rather lost track of time.
Have you found what you wanted?
I did not find it. And nothing could be more significant than its absence. There is no sign here, Mr. Burley, of the black letter Hamlet which you described.
Well, that's funny. I distinctly remember that...
Ah, there you are, Holmes.
Any luck, Watson?
No, not a bit. I missed my supper and had a wild goose chase for my pains.
You mean you couldn't find the half-witted boy?
Checked every house in the village. He's nowhere about.
I'm afraid he will never return.
Dead? You mean you think that he saw too much?
I mean, Watson, that the person who planted that bomb also murdered that poor boy. If we could have some lanterns at once, please, Mr. Burley.
Of course.
I think we'd better follow the tracks of those bare feet to their final destination. Here, Watson. Hold that lantern over my shoulder, close to the ground. This moonlight isn't quite strong enough to... Ah, that settles it.
What is it?
This overturned pebble. See? The underside is still moist and discolored. Someone has been here very recently.
I must say, Mr. Holmes, I don't believe there's another man on Earth who could have brought us to this spot in the dark. By these minute indications you've discovered.
Quite elementary, my dear Mr. Burley. At all events, our tracking's at an end. This path seems to lead right down the face of the cliff.
If you call it a path, where the devil does it lead to?
If you look over the edge of the cliff...
Over here?
Careful. It's a 200-foot drop to those rocks below. You see a dark opening some 40 or 50 feet down?
One of the caves.
Precisely. And except for this extremely precipitous and presumably unknown path, a cave completely hidden and inaccessible save from below by way of the water. Come on.
Dark in here. Very slippery. Careful, Holmes.
Look out for loose rocks.
Oh, blasted. I nearly ripped my ankle.
Look out, that boat is loose.
Good heavens. That just missed me.
What price the brisk sea breeze is now, Watson?
I wish we were back in Baker Street.
There. The worst bit's over. Here's the cave.
It's larger than it seemed from above.
Hold that lantern high above your head, Mr. Burley. This cave extends back quite a distance, apparently. Ah, there's something white beside those rocks.
Oh, gracious me. It's some sandwiches.
Precisely. The remains of your father's lunch, Mr. Burley.
But I don't understand.
And here, unless I'm greatly mistaken, in this pile of books we shall find the missing Hamlet. Ah, yes, just as I thought. Follow me, Mr. Burley. Keep that lantern high enough so that I may see what's ahead of us.
What the dickens are you doing with a revolver in your hand, Holmes?
I expect to find it of use at any moment, Watson. Ah, the end of our road.
It's my father.
It's Burley. He's asleep.
But he's wearing Jackie's clothes.
Precisely. Wake up, Mr. Burley. No, none of that. I've got you covered.
What's the meaning of this?
A very clever plot, Mr. Burley. You so hated your half-caste daughter-in-law that you determined to get rid of her before she could bear you a grandchild, even to the lengths of framing her for your own murder. We said that only she could have tampered with the lunchbox. Obviously, we should have thought, Mr. Burley. Only she and you could have done so.
Good heavens, Holmes.
Do you mean to say that my father...
Under the pretext of some childish game, Burley, you exchanged clothes with that poor boy. We saw him walking along dressed in your clothes. No wonder he didn't answer when I called your name. You watched him as he was blown to bits by the bomb, and then you disappeared.
You knew, Holmes, what we'd find here?
The bare footprints were smooth, Watson, which should have told me at once that they were the prints of Franklin Burley's feet. The boy Jackie, who spent his days climbing the cliffs, would have had horny, calloused feet. When I realized that, everything fell into place.
The ghost in the library.
Pure invention. The accident, which doubtless was simply an accident, introduced Burley to you and suggested that I might prove an unimpeachable witness to his ostensible murder by his daughter-in-law. The story of the ghost was simply an ingenious device to pique my interest.
All right, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. As long as you're so smart, answer this question. What can you prove? I'll admit I changed clothes with the idiot. I'll say it was just a game. Then he was killed by the trap that had been meant for me. I was panicked and ran away.
Yes, panicked to the extent of bringing your most valuable books with you, Mr. Burley, the sale of which would be a great help in starting your new life. But there's more to it than that. How does the heir of an old but impoverished family do himself as well as you do? How does a country gentleman secure a well-made time bomb? And above all, how is it that you were able to describe Moriarty so precisely in order to tempt me?
I know.
You're one of Moriarty's henchmen, aren't you? It's always been a trick of his to use the old smuggler's passages in these caves. Perhaps you're even counting on him to complete your plan.
Look, Holmes, look. There's a motorboat coming in towards us.
There, standing on the prow, that unmistakable thin figure, that oscillating head. It's Moriarty. Get down, Watson, out of sight. Stand up early in the mouth of the cave. Let Moriarty see you in the light, but don't try to warn him. I assure you I won't hesitate to shoot you.
You don't dare kill me. You want me as a witness. Moriarty! It's a trap! Sherlock Holmes is here!
Moriarty's raising his rifle.
Oh!
He shot him, Holmes. Moriarty's shot Burley.
Better luck next time, Holmes.
Good heavens!
Moriarty has made certain that no one shall turn King's evidence against him.
Oh! No. Don't try to stand up, man. You're badly hurt.
I'm dying. But there'll be no dying words from me for you to use in court. I see where you're looking. You want that Hamlet, don't you, Mr. Holmes?
Every scholar, every museum in the world would...
Well, it's mine. I'll never let it be seen. No one shall have it now. You least of all. I'm dying. And it dies with...
Look out, Holmes!
Burley, stop!
Good heavens, he's thrown himself into the sea. He hasn't a chance on those jagged rocks.
Yes, and his body will be washed out to sea before we can get down there. Watson, an irreparable loss.
Loss? A confounded murderer like that?
I was referring to the copy of Hamlet. I'm afraid it's the most shocking loss to English literature since half of Milton's papers were burned by his cook.
And so Professor Moriarty once again got the better of Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, no, only in that he escaped capture, Mr. Bell. After all, Holmes solved the mystery and managed to save the reputation of the young and beautiful Mrs. Burley.
That's true, Dr. Watson. In just a moment, Dr. Watson will tell us about next week's story. But first, ladies, Sherlock Holmes is tops at solving mysterious problems. But here's one hair problem which those beautiful Powers models solve. And here it is.
We discovered there's nothing better than Kreml shampoo to bring out all the hair's natural glossy luster. Kreml shampoo actually keeps our hair shining bright for days.
And Kreml shampoo does such a marvelous cleaning job. Even in the hardest water, its rich, active foam penetrates right to the scalp and removes all loose dandruff flakes as well as the dirt. Kreml shampoo has been especially developed to glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair, to reveal all its glorious natural brilliance. Even after the first shampoo, your hair looks a vision of loveliness.
And don't forget to mention how its beneficial oil base helps keep hair from becoming dry or brittle.
Yes, I know. That's why my wife always uses Kreml shampoo for our youngsters' hair. In fact, everyone at our house uses Kreml shampoo because it's so mild and gentle on the hair. You can buy a bottle at any drug counter. Just ask for Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, how about next week?
Well, now let me see. Next week, I think I'll tell you how Holmes unmasked the sinister Dr. Ponsonby, head of a boys' school, and thus saved the life of one of the pupils. I've always referred to this particularly bizarre adventure as the singular affair of the dying schoolboys.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Final Problem. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo. Inviting you to be with us next week at this same time when Dr. Watson will tell us about the singular affair of the dying schoolboys. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. I will say this for the Sherlock Holmes is written by Green and Boucher. No other detective show sends me on research trips quite like Sherlock Holmes. So what's the story on Hamlet, the original Hamlet? Well, scholars are pretty well divided on it. Since it doesn't exist, there's no comparison. Some people insist that there was no Hamlet, rather that Shakespeare's Hamlet play was the earliest one, and it's just earlier than people date it. Really, in terms of being earlier, they're generally only talking about a decade or so. And this argument's particularly advanced by those who argue that Shakespeare did not actually write the plays that were attributed to him. I did kind of, when we got to the end of the episode, have to wonder about the motives of Moriarty in committing the killing. On one hand, the man he killed could not turn Crown's evidence. On the other hand, he just committed murder in front of three witnesses who he left alive. So I'm not sure this quite has the fingerprint of the brilliance of Moriarty on it. Well, we do have some comments here from listeners. We start with Russell, who says, "Hi, Adam, my wife and I like to listen to podcasts in the evening to relax, and especially podcasts of classic radio, the kind of shows that are parents probably listened to as kids in the 40s and 50s. I stumbled across the Great Detectives on iTunes, and we've really been enjoying the shows. I particularly dig the Sherlock Holmes shows with the hokey wine commercials and the host talking directly to Dr. Watson. Those are little touches that make me feel like I stepped into a radio time machine. Sort of silly and corny, but in a good way. Thoroughly entertaining. Just wanted to express my appreciation for this free podcast when we're recovered from the holiday money squeeze. I do plan to make a modest contribution now and again to help keep your podcast on the air. Have a happy new year and keep up the great work. Well, thanks so much, Russell. Appreciate the thought. Got some good feedback regarding my review of Sherlock. Jack writes, I watched the first run of Sherlock on Masterpiece Mystery. In my humble opinion, it's one of the better British imports of recent years. The spirit of the Doyle stories is captured perfectly, far better than the Rathbone Bruce films, which cemented the unfortunate caricature of Dr. Watson as a bumbling buffoon rather than the able assistant. The allusion to the Holmes canon, the meaning of Rashi and A Study in Pink, Holmes' use of nicotine patches and its description of a case as a 3-patch problem were well placed. More importantly, in an era where so many TV sleuths are Holmes-inspired, Monk, the mentalist, Sherlock, truly gives us Holmes instead of an imitator. I'm more a fan of the Doyle stories and the Jeremy Brett Granada series than the Rathbone films, so that could also count for my enjoyment of the Cumberbatch Freeman series. Good point, Jack. One thing I did think when I saw it is I definitely thought that Jeremy Brett's performance did influence how they did Sherlock. There's a very similar style and similar personality in the way Holmes is portrayed. I do think one difference between, say, the Rathbone performances and Sherlock itself was one that the creators of the 1954 Sherlock Holmes TV series, we've played a couple episodes of that for you already, for those of you who watch the videos, he made the point that what he was trying to do with his series was to create Holmes at the beginning of his adventures, around the time of A Study in Scarlet, the younger, more energetic, more active Holmes. And I actually just reread Study in Scarlet. Actually, I think the first time I read it through all the way. When I first read it when I was a kid, I read all the way through the part where the murderer was unmasked, and then another story seemed to start. And so I thought that the book was actually over. Today I found out that Doyle was doing something very unorthodox, in which Holmes revealed the murderer, and then we had several chapters dedicated to explaining the killer's motives before we got back to Holmes. But that was the spirit that was kind of being captured, is that of the younger Holmes, while the Rathbone films tended to focus on the more experienced, older Holmes. So that may be the difference between the two portrayals. All right, we got some more comments. Robert states, enjoyed Sherlock when it ran on PBS here. Thought the writers did a very good job with bringing the stories up to date. Thought the actors pulled it off as well. And the title of my review that I posted was 21st Century Sherlock, and Lisa said his name would be Monk. Well, thanks, Lisa. While I'm a big fan of Monk, and he uses similar methods to Holmes, the personalities seem pretty different. So perhaps you could make the case that Holmes was so seemingly detached as a result of the time in which he grew up, though that perhaps is more of a book-length topic. Well, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. If you plan on traveling at all, remember JohnnyDollarAir.com. JohnnyDollarAir.com is Priceline, so you have the ability to choose from either the name-your-own-price option or a wide variety of published specials. And you help to support the great detectives of old-time radio. So when you're planning to travel, think JohnnyDollarAir.com first. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the Nora Faulkner matter. I will apologize in advance that there are a few skips in the episode, but we'll go ahead and work with it. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Jim Morris, Johnny. You working on a case?
Founded Kentucky, yes, but not insurance.
Good. Will you go out to the West Coast for us?
Maybe. What is it? Murder, marine theft, arson, or something new?
It's nothing yet. Our manager in Los Angeles phoned this morning. A woman out there wants to buy a $200,000 policy on her life.
Well?
Oh, it's not that we don't want the business, but the sales agent doesn't want to take the responsibility of a deal that size. He thinks she's holding something back. We've decided to investigate.
How old is she?
I don't know. Why?
Oh, I thought I'd ask. There's one kind of woman to investigate, you know, and then there's another. When do you want me to leave?
Edmund O'Brien, in another adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Great Eastern Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Nora Faulkner matter. Expense account item 1, $220 airfare and incidentals between Hartford and the Great East Building, Miracle Mile, Wilshire Boulevard, Los Angeles. The only apparent miracle was the fact that pedestrians crossed Wilshire constantly without getting killed.
Mr. Snyder, we'll see you now, Mr. Dollar.
Thanks.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Dollar.
That's all right.
Let's see. Nora Tracy Faulkner. Here you are.
Thanks. 200,000 to go to her husband. How'd it start, Mr. Snyder?
She phoned one of our salesmen, a fellow by the name of Nelson. He went out to her house. The address is there. And told him what she wanted. He says he was counting his commission at first, but after he filled out the application, he began to wonder.
About what?
Her. She told him she planned on paying 6 months' premiums and wanted to know how soon the policy would be in effect. Acted unnatural, as he put it. I think we ought to find out about her.
I don't like this kind of thing. It's a blind search. I don't even know what I'm looking for. But I'll start on it in the morning, and I'll let you know how I come out. Expense account item 2, $3 cab fare. The usual way to start an investigation of this type is with the subject's neighbors. From the male faction, I learned that Nora Faulkner was beautiful and obviously above reproach. The female faction reversed that decision and reported that she lived with her husband and his mother, but hadn't been seen for the past few days. Realizing that mothers-in-law are fair sources of information, I put her next on my list. Mrs. Faulkner, the elder, sported short, iron gray hair, and her face told the story of an endless battle to hang on to youth.
Come into the drawing room, Mr. Dollar. I think we can be comfortable there.
Thank you.
I'll close the doors. You could see by the way that maid was eyeing you that she's an incurable pariah.
I didn't notice.
She's impossible. Well, what did you find out? Who is she seeing in Las Vegas?
I beg your pardon?
Nora, what did you learn? I'm her mother-in-law.
Well, yes, I know that, but maybe you have me confused with someone else.
You want the detective? The maid announced you as an investigator.
I'm an insurance investigator, Mrs. Faulkner.
Well, then, you're not from that agency. Oh, well, this is embarrassing, to say the least. I hope you won't mention it to anyone.
Well, it's none of my business.
It's really nothing. It's a little game I play with Nora. Then I tease her about her little trips. Please sit down, Mr.
Dollar.
Of course. I feel so foolish, but my daughter-in-law was mentioned when you came in, wasn't she?
Yes, I did want to talk to you about her. To be quite honest, the company that hired me is a little uneasy about that $200,000 life insurance policy she applied for.
Nora applied?
Yes. You didn't know about it?
No, I didn't. Of course, she never tells me anything. Well, why would she do a thing like that? She's a clever woman. There must be a reason. Who's the beneficiary, Mr. Dollar?
Your son, Andrew.
I see. Then I would say it's one of her unexplainable maneuvers. An attempt to regain Andrew's trust and affection.
That's an odd thing to say.
Nora's a strange woman. I know her better than anyone else does. Yes, better by far than my son, her husband.
I understand how she rushed him into marriage while he was in a highly emotional state after he'd been inducted into the army. He was just 19. That was in 1942. I know the gay life she led while he was living in foxholes overseas and while he was convalescing here after the war.
Mrs. Faulkner, I realize that all these things seem very important to you, but...
Mother, Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had company.
Come along, Andrew. You were told that I had company, and you know it. This is Mr. Dollar, Andrew, from an insurance company.
How do you do, Mr. Faulkner?
Andrew, why do you keep things from me?
What do you mean?
Mr. Dollar is from an insurance company. Surely you know what I mean.
No, I don't.
Nora's new insurance policy.
Why don't you explain what you're talking about, Mother?
Nora applied for a $200,000 life insurance policy. You are to be the beneficiary. Didn't she tell you?
She hasn't said anything about it yet.
Of course she hasn't. There are a number of things she hasn't told you. I warned you before.
Mother?
Oh, don't be angry with me, Andrew.
Then please leave.
As you wish, Andrew. You know that everything I do is or say is for you.
Then leave.
All right, all right. Please control your temper.
I'm sorry about this, Mr. Faulkner.
So am I. Is it true about the policy?
About the application, yes.
I don't understand it. I don't understand Nora. I never know what she's thinking. I blame it on Mother, her prying and suspicion. I blame it on that star woman.
Who?
Nora doesn't think for herself anymore. She doesn't do anything or go anyplace unless this dame tells her to.
Who's this?
Oh, a spook, psychic, Madame Star. That's where this insurance idea came from. For a price, she'll tell you if Nora's a good risk or not.
Where can I find her?
Out toward Inglewood someplace. She runs a classified ad in all the evening papers.
Thanks. I'm sorry to have caused you this. I really am.
Oh, well, it's not your fault. Whose fault is it? Maybe everybody's.
It was obvious after meeting Andrew Faulkner and his mother that the application for the policy wasn't the only unusual element in the matter. But on instruction from the company's Los Angeles manager, I continued my investigation. Expense account item 3, $450, transportation to the address of Madame Star, a one-story frame house with heavily draped windows and a sign outside that advertised advice.
Good afternoon, sir.
Madame Star?
That is right.
May I come in?
All are welcome here.
This can't be classed as one of your regular consultations, but I'll pay you for your time.
That is generous of you. What advice do you wish?
I'd like to know why Nora Faulkner was so anxious to buy a big policy on her life.
Who are you?
You mean you don't know?
I claim no powers as medium. I'm not psychic. I only offer advice. Some of those who listen are helped. What advice do you want?
Well, I told you. Nora Faulkner has been coming here?
She has. She's in great need of advice. More intelligent advice than I could give, perhaps. But I try to help her.
By telling her to buy insurance?
Nora Faulkner's life these last few years has been lived under severe mental strain. I advise the search for inner truth, among other things.
Yeah. What about the insurance policy?
Her mental torment resulted in physical failings. I advise tonics, vitamins.
Why are you evading the insurance?
She wanted a more tangible protection of her life.
Protection?
She felt it in danger.
Why?
I have said enough.
She's in Las Vegas, I understand. Where's she staying?
You go there?
I don't seem to be able to get anything but double talk here.
Everybody has a reason for caution. There is Flamingo Hotel. She's there.
How much do I owe you?
Nothing. I've given you no advice. What I would advise, I have no right to say. Good afternoon, sir.
Well, I suppose you have to be mysterious.
Good afternoon, sir.
Expense account item 4, $450, return trip to my hotel. Item 5, $370, cab fare to an airport in Burbank. And item 6, $19.90, round trip to Las Vegas by way of Western Airlines excursion coach. My seatmate turned out to be not only a tourist consultant, but a wit.
Your first trip to Las Vegas?
No, I've spent a little time there.
Great town. Greatest resort I've ever seen. You like to fish?
Well, I used to. I don't have much time for it now. I'm always going to start again, you know how it is.
Well, start on Lake Mead, believe me. Why, they got bass in that lake. And look, the last time I was there, 2 of us went out. I'd broken my rod. It's nothing but a stump. But I put a paper clip on the end and...
Sir, what is your name?
Huh? Oh, Esmond. Harry Esmond.
Thank you. And your name, sir?
Dollar, Johnny Dollar.
Thanks.
Dollar!
Yeah, and I know what's coming.
Name like that, a place like Las Vegas, you might be going in the right direction, brother.
Sometimes I wonder. Except for Mr. Harry Esmond, it was a smooth trip. We eased onto the big desert strip, boarded waiting limousines, and 10 minutes later I walked into the lobby of the Flamingo Hotel.
Mr. Goldstein, please. Long distance.
Yes, sir? My name is Dollar. I have a reservation.
Long
Oh, just a
distance.
moment, please.
Yes, sir. You signed the register.
Right. You have a Mrs. Andrew Faulkner staying here? Or Nora Faulkner?
Nora Faulkner. Sheriff Wood.
What's the trouble, son?
Mr. Dollar just registered. He asked for Nora Faulkner.
Oh, he did, huh? Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Dollar. You may want to talk to her, but she don't want to talk to you or anybody else. She can't.
What's the matter?
She must have had her dinner outside the main dining room. She's in the hospital. She's been poisoned.
We'll return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. But first, the show that dares to name names, dates, places, and the crimes involved. That's Gangbusters, which you hear every Saturday night on most of these same stations. Gangbusters has been hailed nationwide as a great anti-crime series, where the men who tell you how to smash crime are police chiefs, sheriffs, and other law enforcement officers from America's cities and towns. Each Saturday, Gangbusters brings you a new case taken from police files, showing you how a criminal was brought to justice. Often the police officer who headed the chase narrates the story. Be listening for Gangbusters this evening and every Saturday evening on CBS, The Star's Address. Now, with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
After a look at my card and an explanation of my mission, Deputy Sheriff Wood told me the rest of what he knew about Mrs. Nora Faulkner's poisoning, which to date wasn't much. There was no proof of how she'd gotten the poison dose, and the last time he'd seen her, she'd been too ill to talk. She was under her care of a personal physician who had accompanied her from Los Angeles. By the time he had finished, we were at the emergency hospital and approaching her room.
I went through the usual rigmarole of notifying next of kin. Her husband wasn't in, but somebody said she was his mother and then fainted on the phone.
She would.
I expect her to be flying in here on her own wings any minute now. Is it?
Yes? Oh, Sheriff.
This man's an insurance investigator, Dr. Brooks. Meet Mr. Dollar.
Hello.
An insurance investigator? I'm afraid I don't understand.
Well, I was looking into an insurance policy she wanted to buy.
Oh, I see.
How is she?
Resting as comfortably as can be expected.
Has she said anything about the poisoning?
Yes, but I'd rather you heard it from her. Won't you come in?
Thanks. After you, Sheriff?
Sure, I'll tag along. Make it look official and learn how you city boys operate.
Who is it, Peter?
These men want to talk to you, Nora. I want you to tell them exactly what you told me.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Please, Nora.
All right. I couldn't stand it any longer. I didn't want to go on. I wanted to die.
You took the poison, Mrs. Faulkner?
Yes. Not because I'm a coward. Because there's nothing about life that I don't hate. I don't want any more of it.
Where is the poison?
I destroyed it.
Destroyed it? Why should you do that?
I don't know. How can you expect me to know why I did little things at a time like that? I don't know. Peter, please, I don't want to talk anymore. I don't want to talk anymore.
I think we'd better let her rest.
I'm not sure her story rings true. How well do you know her, Doctor?
Quite well, Mr. Dollar. She's been my patient for over 2 years. Her life's been very unhappy. You find it hard to believe that the poison was self-administered?
Yes, I do.
Why would she lie to protect someone who attempted to kill her?
I don't know, but suicides don't do things like destroy poison.
Or take it when they know room service is on the way up to their room with a meal. That's a downright waste of everybody's time.
The waiter did find her, didn't he? I hadn't thought of it. Good Lord.
What?
The vitamin tonic she was taking. The dose included one before her evening meal.
Tablet form, or is it liquid?
It's a liquid Hadico.
And the poison could have gotten to her that way. Where is it?
Back at the hotel in her room. Do you want it?
I think it should be analyzed.
I can get it up to the lab in Carson City tonight by plane.
All right. I'll show it to you. I think she kept it in the medicine cabinet. I'll look. Yes, here it is. Oh, the devil.
What happened?
Clumsy fool. Sorry, I dropped the bottle.
The wash basin's a bad place to drop evidence, Doctor. Sheriff, can we save enough of this stuff? It's going down the drain.
Don't need much. I can scoop some up with my knife. I'll find something to put it in.
An aspirin box would do. Here, I'll hold it. Watch that broken glass.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. If the Hadico does contain the poison, I imagine my position won't be bettered. But it was an accident.
Neither the sheriff nor I reacted to that. We retrieved enough of the liquid for tests and went back to the lobby. 2 men were waiting for us near the desk.
How's it stacking up, Woody? Well, got a real civilized mystery on our hands, Nev. Who's Mr. Dollar? Max Lewis and Nev Gilbert.
How do you do, Mr. Dollar?
These boys help run the place when it isn't running them.
What happened to Mrs. Faulkner, Dollar?
Well, she says she tried to kill herself, but the signs make it look like somebody might have slipped the stuff to her.
Going to be all right?
Seems to be.
We'll send her flowers in the morning, just remind me. Yeah.
I'll go get this tinned evidence on a plane, Dollar. See you in the morning.
Fine, Sheriff.
If the boys here will take care of you. If you aren't careful, that is. I'll see you later.
You pay for breakfast tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chiller. Mr. Chiller, please. Long distance.
I'll get that phone call for Abe. He's taking a nap. Give Dollar everything he wants. That's it, Dollar. The place is yours. You want to start with a drink?
That's the best suggestion today.
Come on, there's a bar in the mural room.
It's a good crowd.
It's only 10. They won't really pile in until later. Sit down. I just soon stand.
Thanks, I will. I'm beat.
How are you, Mr. Lewis?
Fine, Jim.
Make mine double, will you? Not much soda.
The usual for you, Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, and don't be good to me. I've got a long night.
I got you.
This is a beautiful spot. Who's quartet?
Chewy Ray's. He's at the piano. I hope you can come back for pleasure sometime.
So do I. Say, what do you know about this Nora Faulkner?
Nothing. I've noticed her. Seen her in the casino.
She seems to be the type you would notice. Does she gamble much?
I don't know how much, but we can find out. Come on. There's Joe Rosenberg, our credit manager. He'll know.
Hi, Max.
This is Mr. Dollar, Joe. He's here looking into this Nora Faulkner business. He wants to know how much she gambled.
Oh, sure. I looked at the card right after I heard what happened. She signed to get a $500 check cash, so that's all she got.
What do you mean, signed for it, Joe?
That's our deal here. You put down what you think you're going to need, and that's all you can get.
We don't want our customers getting hurt.
Take you, for example. You come in cold, sober, and cash a check for $200. Then, a few hours later, with a flat under your belt and the $200 gone, you come back to me and say you got to have another $200 because you're going to break the joint. But you don't get it. Because we want you to wake up just hungover, not bankrupt.
And all she had was $500.
Right. She's been here 3 days. She didn't look like she'd get into trouble over an amount like that.
I guess not. If she was in trouble, that's the safest bet in the place. It began to look as though I was in the wrong place to find a motive for attempted murder. I talked to a dealer who remembered her, a bartender, and a couple of waitresses who linked her with Dr. Brooks, but none of their statements led to anything. And then, a little past midnight, Andrew Faulkner and his mother arrived. I met them just inside the main entrance.
Mr. Dollar, I didn't expect to find you here.
The insurance company wanted me to follow it through.
What has happened, Mr. Dollar?
Your wife will recover.
Oh, but they told me on the
She
phone.
was discovered in time, and they got her to a hospital.
Oh, I'm so relieved. We haven't been friendly, but when they called, I can't tell you how shocked I was.
You've seen her?
Yes, I've seen her, but you won't be able to until morning.
What did she say? How does she explain this?
She said she hated life and didn't want any more of it.
I see. I suppose she mentioned me.
She didn't mention anybody.
Not even her doctor?
He was with her.
Yes, I should imagine he would be. Well, I am relieved. Scandal and difficult decisions to come notwithstanding. What is your room number, Andy, dear?
302.
And I'm in 117. In case you need us for anything, Mr. Dollar.
I don't think I will, Mrs. Faulkner. I'll probably see you in the morning, and I hope you have a good rest. It was 2 a.m. when I went to my room. In spite of a number of rye and sodas and an exhausting day, I took a shower and some deep inhalations of desert air before I began to unbend. I propped myself up in bed with a magazine and was almost asleep when my phone rang. Johnny Dollar.
The long arm of justice, Dollar.
Oh, yeah, Sheriff.
I'm back at the hospital. There's been more trouble. The Faulkner girl's been shot.
Shot? Is she alive?
Not quite half alive, I'd say. They're trying to bring her around now. Well, I'll see if we can get a statement. I want you to come over.
Sure, I'll be right there.
She's gone, Dollar.
Is that all?
He was conscious for a minute or so. She named her husband.
How did it happen?
He wouldn't have if it wasn't for that personal physician of hers. He'd been in the hospital room tonight. The light was on. He went out to get some coffee, he says, and the husband came in.
Where's Dr. Brooks now?
In her room. Might as well hear what he has to say. Faulkner went through the window there, getting out.
Bad night, Doctor.
Yes, bad night. Sheriff would tell you.
I want for him to hear it from you. He wants the insurance angle. All I want's to kill him.
Well, he threatened to kill her and said nobody'd suspect him because he loved her.
And she wanted insurance to set up a motive.
She hoped to frighten him, to make him think that people would suspect that he killed her for that.
Why didn't you tell us these things?
I didn't know. She told me the truth after I'd come back from the hotel. I told her you were sending the hedicle to the laboratory. She said she didn't want to press, that it wasn't his fault, that his mother had driven him to it, that she wanted to give him another chance. And he had that chance.
How did he arrange it? I saw him in the morning in Los Angeles. He'd have to be here.
She said he was for a short time, in the afternoon. Then he flew back. A detective had found out that I was here with her.
And that was Mother's work, too.
He evidently arranged the poison when she refused to go home with him. He was deranged, a war casualty. Nora was terrified of him, but still she defended him. She's dead because she had a blind hope that the poison attempt would do something to him, that he'd get better and understand what his mother was... Sorry, gentlemen.
Yeah, you should be, Doc.
If you'd phoned us when you got her story, she wouldn't be dead.
But I didn't know.
I've had enough, Sheriff.
I didn't know he'd come back.
I'm going back to the hotel.
I've got the airport covered. I'll call out some more men. We'll pick him up. Why don't you meet me in my office in 20 minutes? This kind of thing I'll leave to you outsiders. We haven't had much experience with this stuff. Did you talk to the mother?
Yeah, I talked to her. She admitted a lot of lies. She wanted to get the girl away from her son, but couldn't understand how he could have done this. Well, how do we find him?
We sit here and wait. Las Vegas is a bad place to get away from. There's one highway in and one highway out, and I've got roadblocks on both.
No other roads?
Oh, there's some roads. But this is the desert. He can try them, but he'll find out that roads are like everything else on the desert. They go so far, and then they get tired and stop because they ain't getting any place.
And we wait for a radio report.
It might take some time, but it'll come. A lot of things to fight out here. Outside of town, couldn't get a drink for $1,000. It's so dry. One old timer they tell about got hit by a drop of water, and they had to pour a bucket full of sand in his face to bring him to.
What time is it?
7:30 a.m. Even today, that sun's going to be hot enough to fry a steak. If he don't come back, it'll be because he can't make it.
Come on, stop it, will you?
You know, they tell about a coyote chasing a jackrabbit. The coyote was starving to death, and the jackrabbit knew it, but it was so hot they were both walking.
Sure.
By noon, this killer of yours will be willing to crawl into the electric chair to cool off.
I didn't believe him until just afternoon. Then the report was not by way of radio. We got a phone call from the railroad section house southwest of town. A stranger fitting our description had been seen.
Hello, Sheriff.
Hi, Ben. Where is this thing you talk about?
Well, my kids sneaked up on him. They tell me he went into a drain culvert under the tracks a mile down.
You want to help?
No, thanks. They say he's got a gun.
Nope, that's it. A couple of you men cover the other side of the tracks.
Okay.
Now, that first wash feeds into the culvert. We'll stay next to the embankment. This is close enough for now. You give him a yell. He may remember you.
I'll try it. Faulkner, this is Dollar. Come on out, Faulkner. He's off his nut, Sheriff. I don't think he's coming out.
Yeah, well, you keep yelling. I'm going to move over there where I can get a sight to that pipe. Maybe that'll change his mind.
Faulkner, come on out. There are men on each side of the tracks. There's no place for you to go. Sheriff?
I'm all right. Come on out there, Faulkner. I don't want to blow you out, but if you don't put down your gun and come out on your own, I'll have to. All right. Okay, boys, stand clear on the other side of the tracks. Faulkner?
You don't expect an answer, do you, Sheriff?
No, guess not. Poor cuss. Who carried his life insurance, you know?
Expense account item 5, miscellaneous, $200. Item 6, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $1,120.40. Remarks? Mrs. Faulkner collapsed when she received the news. She hadn't recovered by the time I left, and I was glad I didn't have to face her again. Her son was guilty in fact, and I'd seen him killed because of it. That was bad enough. But not as bad, I thought, as watching her start life again, alone and knowing that the guilt was really hers. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were Parley Bear, Jeanette Nolan, Herb Butterfield, Lee Patrick, John Daner, Tim Graham, Virginia Gregg, Wilms Herbert, Victor Perrin, and Clayton Post. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when we will again bring you Edmund O'Brien as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Are you ready to sing it again tonight? You'll find a whole hour full of the day's popular music sung by Alan Dale, Bob Howard, Judy Lynn, and the Riddlers. The Phantom Voice is a puzzler, but some CBS listener will win $5,000 in cash. Now stay tuned for Von Monroe's Caravan, which follows immediately on most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, where you laugh with Lucille Ball and my favorite husband on Saturday nights, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. The discussion of fishing on the flight to Las Vegas was kind of interesting, in that fishing really, with the Bob Bailey Johnny Dollars, was Johnny's big hobby and the one thing he always wanted to be able to do. In several plots of those Johnny Dollars with Bob Bailey centered around his fishing activities, as well as places he liked to go and fish. For those of you who have the app or the premium site, we've added another show that we've got on the list of shows we'd like to do. It's A Man Called X. It's another espionage detective story. Like Dangerous Assignment, but Man Called X is definitely more set into the Cold War era, while Dangerous Assignment was a little bit more generic, at least in the episodes that I've heard of Dangerous Assignment. So for those of you who have the app and the premium site, you can go ahead and listen to a sample episode of The Man Called X. Also have a new review on iTunes. F.J. Hurt writes, the best. Well, thanks so much. And I'm wishing everybody the best this weekend. We'll be back on Monday with another episode of The Abbotts. Also coming up this weekend, we have our first video theater episode of 2011, Mr. Wong Detective. I hope you enjoy it. Send your any comments to box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. And become one of our friends over on Facebook, facebook.greatdetectives.net. From Boise, Idaho, though, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.